Good afternoon or evening if you happen to live a different part of the world, and welcome into the SPL. It is Saturday, and that means that we got some excellent sets lined up for you here today. And don't worry, we'll be going through them all, telling you what you can expect, and obviously bringing you the action as well. But joining me here on the desk, I've got Ryan Agro Bailey, and we are right in the middle of a crunch time, whatever you want to call it. We are getting towards the end of the phase. You want to make sure you're in top form for Worlds, is finishing as high as you can in the standings. There is a lot that is riding on these last few matches.
This is when you got to turn it up and start stepping up, specifically for these two teams we're about to see, eUnited and Obey, about to face off in a very, very critical game. I mean, not often we get to talk about the stakes of a 7-8 seed matchup, but this one has a lot of stakes. The head-to-head will be determined here as these two teams have gone 1-1 against one another here in Phase 2. The loser of this will be guaranteed bottom 2, and the winner will have a chance to get up and past the Renegades there for the 6th seed. So this is going to be a pretty important one for both of these squads.
Yeah, no one, I think, will be cheering louder for Radiance than the winner of this set, right, to try and get him more of a chance to pass Renegade to that set later on. So there's a lot of implications today for the bottom of the league. I think yesterday was our top 4 kind of contest back and forth. Maybe you include Radiance in that, but today is our match to determine who can least make it to that 6th place seed. It's so important to try and avoid that 7 and 8 if you can. So now we can talk a little bit about this set that we're expecting here. eUnited, I think, maybe have a claim to saying that they're not the holders of the record. They're kind of stuck with this new roster that they have, but I think they've had some struggles even since reforming. Gino, though, has been a real bright spot of this roster for me. We've known he's had this talent down there in the minor league forever. He's finally brought it up here to the SPL to show everybody.
Completely agree with you. I mean, Gino was really the guy that I think a lot of people might have gone under the radar for them, that they didn't think that it would be as big of a deal adding him, but taking Snoopy out of that role where he's just learning and trying to get comfortable there and putting a tried and true support main in that slot has made a world of difference for this eUnited team. Gino's proven that his God pool is big enough to compete at this level. I mean, things like Hercules, things like Sobek have been picked for him. Kuzenbo, we've seen banned away from this team a decent amount. And he's shown that he can play the Emoja, which is a huge part of being an SPL support these days, is showing that you can play the best character in your role when not every support has in the entire SPL. I think Gino has been a really key part of when eUnited is playing at their best.
I think so too, man. Support, arguably the second most important role in the game, right behind jungler. I think a pretty consistent argument can be made for that, and that's why it's so important they added in Gino, got everyone to the roles they were comfortable with, and now they don't have to worry about this left side of the map. They can open up Bastion and Scream and Whirlwind to be a little more comfortable in their own roles, in their own skin, and hopefully start to help lead this team. But I think they're in a bigger roadblock here against Obey than that perhaps we've been giving them credit for. In particular, I gave Inbound a little bit of heat the last time I was on Waiting Room with you, but I think he's played really, really well these last couple of weeks, and they just need that whole package to come together around him.
It just kind of seems like a hot and cold sort of season for Obey and for Inbound in particular in that support role. So if Gino, we think, has been stepping up for United, now we have to see that same sort of level coming out of Inbound, but he's certainly capable of it. He's done it a lot so far recently. I just want to see Obey continue to play their style, not worry too much about what everyone else is picking, because clearly that is not what they're going to do when they're winning. They are not a meta-determining team. They're going to do their own sort of meta, and maybe everyone else will start to follow it a little bit later on. But things like this Ymir for Inbound we're not seeing for everybody else. I mean, the Osiris jungles for Sino. I know chat might not like it when you see Sino lock in a warrior, but I've got no problem with it. I think that is Obey's identity at this point. As far as I'm concerned, Obey should just do whatever they feel like is going to set Sino up for success. I know that Wolfie has been having this Ra that everyone's talking about, and Ducky's had some great Thor games, but Obey's success, in my mind, boils down to one player, and that's Sino. When Sino pops and Sino is able to get the support from the rest of the team, Obey can beat anybody in the SPL. When Sino's having an off day, they are instantly in trouble. And that's just been the way that this team has been since they made that pickup. They've got to find a way to enable their jungler.
It's a lot of pressure, I think, on Sino to be the leader of this team, but he's got some help coming out from Bobby, or Inbound as y'all know him, in that support role, and that's exactly who we sat down to talk with for the pregame interview.
All right, well, we're here with Inbound from Obey, and we were just chatting about some of the technological issues that you have overcome very recently. I just want to know, at the very front, just for the fun's sake, has things been feeling a little bit better with your computer and feeling a little better overall for Smite?
Yeah, Smite feels like a whole new game now. I don't know. Dude, technology is too advanced, too complicated. Hopefully we're good now, and that's the last mistake I'll make.
Yeah, it's too much, right? You're supposed to just be able to hit some buttons and have everything work. There's all these settings and all this. I don't know. It is honestly too much. But I think it's interesting because you, as a player, have made so much growth with what I would say are handicaps, right, compared to some other players in the league. So now I'm really excited to see what you have. Plus, Obey as a whole, not just yourself, but the entire team have been looking really solid. Unfortunately, there still haven't been as many wins, I'm sure, as you would like. But how do you think you're going to start turning this around?
Well, we started just losing 2-1s. We've been losing a lot of 2-1s, so I just think we need to figure out how to, like, close out games. I don't think a lot of the times we get beat in stomps. It's just, like, kind of games we throw or we just lose late-game team fights. So I think we can just clean up our late-game team fighting. We'll be able to take games 2-1, 2-0 eventually.
Well, we'll have to see if you can apply that today. You're actually 1-1 with eUnited, and it's weird because we don't have a lot of people. Actually, I say that. We have a lot of teams that are close in the standings. You two are pretty much right next to each other. So it's actually important how this set could go. Whoever wins gets the head-to-head. How do you end up, preparing for a match like this, knowing that eUnited could have that edge since they won the last one?
I just think we scrimmed really hard. We had like a lot more scrims this week than we did like previous weeks, so we've been kind of just grinding this week, and we've been preparing for this United matchup because we know how important it is. So just like getting a bunch of extra scrims in, I think that's going to help us get this edge over United.
And you specifically are going to end up against Snoopy and Gino for the second time this phase. Before it was preparing for Snoopy and Gaijay, but now you have this other support that is kind of, I guess at this point, not necessarily fresh into the SBL. So what's the plan in duo lane? I mean, are you just looking for comfort picks? Is there a certain way to maybe try and keep them down? Is there a plan to just take Snoopy or take Rom away from Snoopy so that he can't do Snoopy things?
Right now we got a couple things in the work. I think we're gonna focus more on Gino's side than Snoopy's side. But yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. We're kind of just like going off for the first game, and we're just gonna see what happens, how everything feels after the first game, and then decide thereafter for the second and third game if there's a third.
Yeah, adapt mid-set. That's what all the best teams do. So I'm actually really excited to see what Obey has in store for us today. It sounds like you've got everything under wraps, though. A lot of preparation for this match, an important one at that. So good luck in your games, man, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, sounds like the Obey boys are in good spirits. Could be trying to work through Gino as well, which is always a good idea as far as I'm concerned. A strong player that's over there on that other side, so you got to make sure that you're taking care of him. Now, Angor, to kind of bring you back in, I mean, did talking to Bobby give you kind of any more insight of what Obey are going to be doing here today, or you think we kind of coming in doing business as normal?
I think it's going to be pretty much business as normal. I mean, as Bobby said, they know how important this matchup is, so getting an extra couple scrims in earlier on this week is definitely a good idea. Maybe some teams, it's sometimes better to not take the extra scrim, save the mental a little bit, but I think this Obey team is very, very hungry in order to try and find this win and prove that they can be outside this top two where they've really been stuck all year.
Well, as we move into the picks in bands, I think that sentence you just said is what looms largest over this set for me. Right underneath that, very, very close, is how important this matchup is to determine who's 6 and 7. But I think these are two teams both who've taken a lot of objection, to being considered these bottom teams. Right now, it has bore out in the standings. It has bore out in the results. But I think when you finally still have a chance to come in and prove that you can play a little bit better than what we've seen, I think that's pretty important. These two teams have something to prove in this set here today.
Absolutely. That's it adds that little extra layer of hunger, right?
Yeah.
That that these two teams really think that they're definitely above the other. No one wants to consider themselves the 8 seed. So I think that we're going to see a pretty close matchup between these squads. And I'm excited to see what kind of prep work they put in. eUnited in that first ban position often has a little bit more luxury in terms of target bans. And Obey actually bans away the set, which is interesting to me because I don't think eUnited has really shown that they will play this pick recently, but if you've paid attention to Snoopy's career in ADC, he was one of, if not the first, to pull out that set ADC in competitive matches. I think he really was the one that made it work on that Armada squad that beat Rival at LAN. So I think Obey really reaching back and respecting that performance from not even this season for Snoopy, and that's why we see it banned here.
Gotta take it away. Set getting a lot of respect across the league right now. I wonder if it's maybe a little bit more than he's earned, but better safe than sorry with a pick like that can run the game. So eUnited prioritized the Cupid first overall in a world where ROM is already banned, and that means that this Amaterasu, which thankfully is being valued somewhere still, could go over to Obey as their first overall pick, and they'll put that into the hands of Ducky. And then you might be thinking, hey, maybe that's the warrior pick. No, this is the pick that's going to be going to Sino. If this Osiris does end up getting locked in, we know that he loves to play these warriors in the jungle, and I'd be surprised if that's not where this goes.
And I think we're going to start to see more and more Osiris Finch. I mean, he got a buff that was not nothing. I mean, getting extra range on your ultimate is a really big deal. That used to be a very short range initiation. Now it is one of the further ultimates that you can get hit with in the middle of a team fight, and I feel like that adds in another layer to this god. But I was going to say some respect bans by Obey, but not on the Giannis. And Osiris is just not a character that can kill Giannis effectively. I mean, he is a whittle you down, chase you down, impossible to get away from sort of jungler, unless you can literally walk through the wall, in which case you really don't have to respect this pick really at all. I think this Giannis pick, this is one of the few games where I feel like I would say I like the Giannis pick no matter who was playing it. When it's Heroind playing it as well, I feel like it's perfect. I'm surprised that Obey, if they were planning on picking Osiris jungle, were willing to leave the Giannis open.
I like this, though. Heroin and Inbound, who I assume, or not Inbound, I'm sorry, but Gino, who I assume the Sobek going to be going to, have both gotten two of their premier picks here, haven't they? Plus, it has the added value of keeping the Sobek away from Inbound, who we know how much better he's looked on that pick, and as the Kuzenbo, as opposed to what we know as his third pick, like the Amir, and some of those other options. So I think this is great. Top three here from United. They have this Cupid for Snoopy, and we know Snoopy could play whatever hunter you give him, so especially someone with a big team fight ultimate like this is great. And they're saying, hey, give us our best picks. This set is important. We're going to win it. Put Heroin on Giannis, put Gino on this Sobek, and see if Obey can beat us on our best stuff.
Very surprised that we don't see support bans here for eUnited. I think that targeting out Inbound, taking away the Kuzenbo and the Ymir, and maybe the Sylvanas, if you'd rather go with something like that, would have made a lot of sense to me. But Wolfie has been playing well enough that I think he's putting a little bit of pressure on eUnited here to ban away some of those gods. As Khepri comes out, when both Achilles and Thanatos, and Alkwang, though I don't think we're going to see that, all are available here for eUnited. Scream is known to play a lot of Achilles jungle. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he goes.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense here. And the reason I'm the most confused about this is that I wouldn't even consider Khepri one of Inbound's better gods. I mean, I think he's done well on it before, but it's a slow starter, which is not necessarily how you want your support nowadays anymore. And it can get bullied out a lot, too. And he's looked really good on the Kuzenbo, who can fight from the beginning of the game. Just doesn't seem to like that here. As the Achilles and the Fenrir get locked in, I gotta think that this is Achilles for Baskin, Fenrir in the jungle. How do you like these last two?
If it were any team, I would say that's a slam dunk. For eUnited, I agree that it probably is that way, but maybe we could see the Fenrir solo lane. I think Fenrir, it's normally reserved as a counter pick option in a lot of games, but also recently got a buff a little bit faster in Ragnarok. I think that ultimate can really do work. You got to be picking up the Khepri a lot of time, because don't forget the Khepri ult cleanses, and now you've got this Isis in the mid lane for Wolfie, who has loved this character throughout his career, that oftentimes can make Fenrir feel really, really rough to play, because it just takes Brutalize out of the equation. Isis has two forms of CC that will stop Brutalize in its tracks. I feel like this is a pretty tough Fenrir game for whoever is piloting it on eUnited. They've got to find a way to be effective through all of the CC coming from the mid laner and this cleanse and res ultimate coming out of the support.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about this Fenrir pick here either, but Isis, I mean, she's got good push potential. Her ultimate is great when you're contesting objectives, but doesn't she just feel like a little bit, I don't know, outclassed by some of these mid laners that are out there today? She has these long duration wind gusts that can get disrupted, very reliant on hitting these spirit balls successfully, and if you don't, her damage sometimes can see a bit lacking. I mean, we'll see how this Isis works. It's some spicy picks here for this all-important set. eUnited versus Obey. Game number one. Let's kick it off.
You're spot on there, Finch. This one, very important for both of these teams. It's Dolson, Gormizer, and Doug bringing you the action for eUnited versus Obey. You at home, let us know in chat which way you think this one is going to go. Both teams, Gore, I'd say, in dire need of a win, especially with only a couple matches left here in this phase of the SPL.
Yeah, both on loss streaks, Obey 7, eUnited on 4, that they have just not been able to pick up a W throughout. And honestly, it comes down to the head-to-head. I think they mentioned this on the desk, but you know, if they end up in a tiebreaker because these two teams are so close in the standing, whoever wins this one is the one that ends up coming out on top. Obey won the first one, eUnited won the last one, so it is important to try and win this set overall. It's always important to try and win a set, but this one, I think, with a little more gravity behind it. And honestly, both comps coming in with some pluses and minuses. Like, I think the Yanis, the Cupid all feel, and the Sobek here feel like pluses. The Fenrir, maybe a little bit of a minus. It depends on which Scream we get today. You get a Materasu, you get the Jing Wei over there on the other side, and then you have the Isis that comes through. Someone who we don't see too often. I still think she has a lot of merit, but there's a lot of question marks around him just because there's so many ways to deal with her as well.
Right, I mean, you can already see some decent push power for Wolfie there in mid, and you know, it's a tall task. Anyone going up against Hurriwin's Giannis has got to bring it a little something extra because so often this pick gets banned out. So Obey Alliance obviously with something in mind here, letting that pick through. It should be an interesting mid-lane battle, I think, though, Gore. Partly because of this. Somewhat immobile is Hurriwind in the mid, but he'll be able to make his way out alive as Sino blinked on in early on there. Snoopy grabs the stun onto inbound over in duo. But everyone stays alive for the time being. Sino trying to put some early pressure in the mid.
And honestly, I think they need it. Again, like you said, you want to shut down Hurriwin's Yanis as fast as possible just because you roll it back. It doesn't have a high win rate, but United really doesn't have a high win rate either, mainly because it's banned from him all the time. He doesn't get to play it in any of the games that maybe they could win. And unfortunately, in all the games that maybe he's lost with it, which is 2 out of 3, he hasn't had it as much as we'd like to say. But realistically, he just makes life hard for everybody else on the other team. It's very difficult to win against this Yanis, even though it has been proven capable of. Sino, as a warrior, is going to suffer early on.
Look at the stun, look at the damage on Sino. Scream! Oh, you just need a little bit more. Wolfie makes his way from mid. Both junglers limping away from the fight as the mid laners separate the two. And it looks like both will stay alive. Scream found that early stun, the Spirit Ball. Will not get Scream this time. I admire the attempt there from Wolfie. Sino gets to stick around, though, and farm up a little bit more.
Over and do it. I'm actually not surprised to see this much pressure from Snoopy and Gino, but I think having Snoopy at half health is a little concerning for the duo lane on eUnited. But overall, you know, that's what Isis can bring, right? A little bit better, or maybe that's what Fenrir is going to have to suffer against through all of this. Cool, you brutalize, I'm either going to hit you with the Spirit Ball and stun you, or I'm going to silence you for a second, which gives her a little bit of a shield as well, so whether or not she's saving herself or a teammate, you have a little bit of a benefit. I think if Wolfie can keep up level of plays like that just saved Sino's life, then we're going to get to see a lot of fun. But there's also, you know, late game, your damage numbers that Isis puts out. Early on, we've already seen the clear, but I think even later, you're going to be hitting just as hard, if not harder, against someone like Scream. And Circle of Protection is going to be a very thwarting ability when it comes to someone like a Fenrir trying to jump in. Or if it comes down to objectives, I think that's something that Obey will have an advantage over just because of this nice, wide, easy, confirmed ult that Obey are going to be bringing out.
Gore, I mean, obviously we're going to be learning a lot just about Isis and build paths and things of that nature as this game goes on, because this is, what, her 5th time I think we've seen her played maybe this year in the SPL. Wolfie's got Druid Stone to start off, had the Blessing as well, now working into his boots. I mean, it's Stone of Bonding, Stone of Foul, or Void Stone, I suppose, based off of that build tree. An interesting start nonetheless there. I mean, I suppose you could make an argument for a couple of them there. A little magical power, a little magical protection, though, for Wolfie to start off with.
Again, just keeping him, I think, a little comfortable, right? He's in a position where not too worried about Scream, has enough early clear that he's not stressed out over there, and so he's going to be able to stay alive. I also, again, the pressure that they're trying to put just to shut down Hurriwind, it's one of those things that can pay off big if this Yanis can't get anything done, especially if Scream can't get anything done as well. But if what we're seeing, which is coming true, Hurriwind just a little further ahead of Wolfie and Farm, continues at this rate, then he's still going to be a late game menace, so maybe you've ended up prioritizing a threat that didn't quite really come to fruition there for Obey. So I'd like to see
Right.
them, if they're going to go in, maybe commit to it a little harder or just try to lock him down. Yannis is notoriously difficult to do that to, though. So
True.
admittedly, I mean, you're looking at, what, Ice's Spirit Ball, really the only reliable stun that can come out instantly to make sure that Whirlwind in that 3v3 goes down and is going to be locked down. Otherwise, it's inbounds pull.
Oh, look at this, look at this. Ducky just dodges out the execute from Basket, who's taking too many tower shots in the meantime. Ducky, first blood here on the other side of the fight, though. Inbound has to use the res. It's a double stun, though, from Wolfie out of the mid lane. Scream leaps up and over, but he's walking right back into the fight here. Sino will get the root down and the stun in just a moment, and now he's picked up another for Obey. An early skirmish ends up being a 2-for-1 across the map for Obey.
I mean, well played overall. I think Obey being able to hit that jukes from Ducky. I mean, that's just gorgeous under the tower, making sure that execute doesn't land. And, well, with a little help from the tower, securing himself a kill and almost saving the life. I mean, you lose inbound, and this always sounds mean. I always feel a little bad when I say it, depending on the support player. But realistically, you're the one that's most worthwhile to have. You
can say it about Gino right
in
now.
those scenarios, right? I mean, like, absolutely. Except for Gino, this isn't a trade scenario. You're
Right.
just way out of place, right? I mean, that you get the red buff, so maybe there's a push and pull that comes through with it. You're worthwhile dying over picking up the buff. But to get a kill there on the Wowie now that you have, a kill on the Sino, and a kill for Ducky, is going to give them a much-needed experience jump, I think, to keep up
Right.
or even surpass eUnited.
Well, admittedly, Gore, I mean, you could even maybe call that uncharacteristic from Baskin. I mean, he calculated it very well. I mean, maybe in that moment, that play is, I'm betting on myself hitting this execute, otherwise I'm going to die. And unfortunately, the roulette table did not land on his color this time around. So maybe he's just, he's placing a small bet on himself there, but definitely took a few too many shots than he had bargained for. And up to that point, Baskin had kind of been controlling Ducky in that lane. Most of the early trades had been for the Achilles. Luckily, won't snowball things too heavily one way or another. Gino started to make his rotation, though, Gore. We saw an attempted red buff invade that definitely did not go Gino's way. But now you started to reach that 7 to 10 minute mark where you really expect the Sobek to start to make some impact in that 3v3.
Yeah, between him and Kepri, someone's going to be getting grabbed over there in that 3v3. It's just a question of who it will be overall. I'm going to be honest, I've been a little distracted just because every time we've gone to the duo lane, I think that's the first time I've seen Wowie like all year, like his face just in general. So it's been catching me a little off guard just because it's the first time. It's just so beautiful, Dave, to have someone come through and have these player cams available to us, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, this is a matchup that, admittedly, Wowie kind of needs to be able to win so far. He's been doing pretty well as well. That 1-0 slash line is just a little bit of a pullback for him. And I think this is a moment where, as you had said, depending on where these supports are, that's where the kill pressure should be. You can go ult for ult, trade for trade, pretty much everywhere else here. I think it is up to Inbound and Gino on the other side to try and lock someone down here, just because otherwise everyone's got so much survivability and escapability that there's not really a lot of things that will put them out of position.
There's a pluck onto Inbound immediately into the portal for Hurrywin. Look at the damage. Can he hit the snipe?
Ooh.
Oh, the Scarab's blessing was there nonetheless, but just wide on the end of it. So it's mid-ult for now the Scarab's blessing down. That'll open up a little bit of pressure for Baskin as well to invade here on the right-hand side of the map. What a combo, though, right? I mean, we talk a lot about supports comboing with mid laners, you know, snipes, things like that. You don't often get to see a pluck immediately into a portal, and something I hope we get to see again a couple of times throughout this game.
Yeah, and honestly, as the game goes on, that's just going to hit even harder, right? I mean, you get the portal damage that'll scale up as he levels that a little bit later, but the unstable vortex, the guaranteed damage right after they fall from the portal, I mean, that's where that's going to come through. You can pretty much all in your kit if you're Yannis right there off of a plug. And if it's on someone like Wolfie or Sino, it's a guaranteed kill, as opposed to someone like Inbound, who it was almost a guaranteed kill against at this point in the game. So I'd like to see more of that from Whirlwind. I think, again, it showcases how deadly and kind of scary you are if you're a Yannis player that knows what you're doing. And admittedly, it feels like there's one, maybe two. You can throw Venenu under that umbrella, but right now Whirlwind seems to be the specialist that we see.
Oh, agreed.
And it's absolutely a threat that they're bringing in.
Oh, Gino has eaten a whole lot of CC here. He'll have to dash away, now lurking in the waters, but Sino, an easy bit of damage on the back end, will pick up another kill now for Obey, and right by the Gold Fury. I agree, Gore. Fantastic call here for Obey. United going to rotate in around the backside, but Obey Alliance are going to get the Gold Fury nonetheless. Snoopy and Scream left running, but Sino wants a little bit more. Snoopy will sustain, but Scream has pulled Sino right back into range. Snoopy goes down as Ducky is there to capitalize for the kill. The Scarab's Blessing keeps Sino alive, and Scream will be able to escape. Obey Alliance are playing clean at the moment. A little unfortunate, I think, down the stretch there for Snoopy.
Look, I think realistically what you get to see there, not only inbound, I think, enabling things, but when there's a Khepri on your squad, tier 1 towers, or towers in general, the pressure I think that Scream would get from being able to pick someone up and pull them under is not going to be the same. I mean, that instant revive, Sino knows he's not going to die there, and even if he does, he's still able to get a lot of pressure, and trading himself out for a Gold Fury plus kills would be worthwhile. The Scarab's Blessing keeping him in it, more pressure there under the duo lane, gives Wowie an advantage. Now he's up a little bit over Snoopy, 1 level that we see. And that is just good play overall. And also, I think it's going to translate into more objectives like that. Circle of Protection already almost back up, but when it comes down to Gold Furies, Pyromancers, Fire Giants, that is the premier ult. Yeah, Yanis could technically try to snipe it out, but a giant AoE ultimate, huge circle that heals your team and deals damage, and it's a nice big burst you can charge up. I have just a lot of trouble arguing against an ability like that. And now with the Stone of Binding online as well, Wolfie is going to be able to enable himself and eventually Wowie and Sino to just do more damage in the middle of these fights if he hits stuns. So I think it's a very dangerous game to be playing around a circle protection or not for eUnited with this ISIS on the field.
And I suppose it's not surprising at all, specifically that it's Wolfie that's building into a little bit of defense early on. He has loved these sorts of builds on some of his mid lane picks here as of late. I mean, notably the Ra. I don't have to hold that thought as Sino is over towards Snoopy. It's an offensive airstrike now from Wowie in the Fields of Love. Will slow down any sort of re-engagement. There was a through space and time sent on through from Hurrywin. It looks like it actually connected onto Wowie, nearly sniped out the kill there. I didn't quite catch that, but Wowie sure did. So lucky to be alive there, and admittedly, Gore, a good play for United. Not only to keep Snoopy alive, but keep him in lane and force Wowie back.
Let's start up the Pyromancer now if you're United, so you get a little bit of an advantage. We've actually seen, like, the Knights specifically come to my mind, teams that have been more willing to pick up Pyromancers outside of things like Gold Fury. They'll trade it out. Oni Furies they want, Primal Furies they couldn't care less about, right? They'll go for the Pyro over it. And it does enough at equating some of the gold. It's still a 2K gold lead here for Obey, but you're pulling some of that pressure back. This is just not a good spot to be in.
No, look at all that damage. Stone of Binding, nice to meet you, says Scream. Ducky, a rotation over for a kill there. This ISIS out of the mid lane starting to warm up now for Obey. Wolfie pulled back in. We'll have to try to back away here, lurking in the waters. Circle of Protection down, though, and that'll buy Wolfie an extra heal. Scarab's Blessing was on him there as well. That's definitely an ultimate. We'll have to keep our eyes on here. Sino right back over to duo lane. Snoopy does not have the Fields of Love, and I'm not sure he has a chance. Sino drops the damage down, and Hurrywin won't be able to save you this time, but Hurrywin, he's going right back in. Baskin through the portals as well. Grabs the stun onto Sino, but Sino up and over the wall. Hurrywin wants a little bit extra. Sino is absolutely swinging here, and Hurrywin has to leave. Now it's Gino re-engaging for eUnited, and Scream is in from the backline, but Gino with the pluck will end up finding the second kill of the game for eUnited.
Look, we've all fallen trapped to that, right? When you see how much damage you're doing, you kind of surprise, I think, not only us, but himself there for Sino, right? He's like, wait a minute, I almost killed Hurrywin. I might as well stay, see if I can do it. I'm 3-0, I'm untouchable. Unfortunately, that's not entirely true as of all. It is top damage, but he's not untouchable with that death coming through. Still, I think it showcases where eUnited are maybe falling apart. I mean, look at this. Depending on how they go with it, there's so many silences and stuns control on the side of Obey that it's difficult to fight. If you go back to Scream's last death, he literally couldn't do anything. He was silenced the entire time they were fighting him.
So much CC for Wolfie to take advantage of. There was actually a small window there for United. Maybe had done just a little bit more where there was no Circle of Protection, there was no Scarab's Blessing, so Wolfie may have been on the menu there. But I think eUnited think better of things, realizing they have a small bit of momentum, not to overtake Obey, but they've just pulled a little bit of the momentum away from Obey. Look at the call, Gormiser. They are now working in towards the FG, and they are doing it fast. Circle of Protection will detonate it. That is a 15-minute Fire Giant for Obey Alliance, and they did it quickly. eUnited, no chance to respond.
Look, we've seen a few early Fire Giants this year, but that one was an ultimate flex. I mean, you don't even have a crazy lead if you're Obey. I mean, technically you're
like 2K.
2K ahead. You're going to be able to turn that into a lot more now that you have a Fire Giant.
It's getting brutal.
To be an Oni Fury, but I mean, this is systematic. This is exactly what they were talking about, and not only in the interview, but every time we've seen them, right? Their early game has gotten much cleaner. What they were saying and what the kind of discussion has been is the late game from Obey. Every now and then, you know, they make a misstep, one misplay that ruins everything for them, it seems. And, you know, teams like SSG, teams like Ghost have been able to capitalize on that no problem. If they don't give any openings at all, it's going to be difficult for United. But honestly, even if they do, United are going to be so far behind soon enough that it might not be enough for them. Ducky might be the consolation prize here since there's 3 members looking at him, but you're going to lose a tier 2 tower for it.
And if you're going to kill him, you got to do it quickly, because Ducky's just going to do this. Retreat back to his team. Now he's just going to delay your backs while the left side Phoenix is being looked at by Obey. In around the backside goes Hurrywin. My god, the damage deletes Wolfie before he can react. And now it's a stun from Baskin to try to keep Inbound in place. Brutalized from Scream, canceled out as Baskin lines up the execute, and he's got it here. eUnited with signs of life. Obey Alliance are repelled for the time being.
I spoke too soon. Granted, we were 15 minutes in, but it
We
felt
all
like
did.
a 28-minute team fight with the way they were going. Luckily, you still have all of that, just insane burst Yanis can bring. An ult into the unstable vortex, just shotgun blast when you're right in front of Wolfie. Yeah, you're not going to live through that one. Had his Aegis, but like you said, you couldn't respond to something like that. The damage came out so fast. And you pull out some of the Fire Giants, you alleviate some of the pressure. I think, and this is the weird thing about early game Fire Giants, this is one of those moments where you're probably better off just going from tower to tower as opposed to trying to pressure out of Phoenix. An early game Phoenix, you know, 16 minutes in, yeah, that's going to set you up for what would seem like an easy win. But it's risky just because of what we just saw. I think if you get these towers, you get a much bigger gold lead. And there's nothing to say they can't do it. They still have the Fire Giant buff there on Wowie. It's just the safe play, which is what we see a lot of those top teams go for. And that's what Obey are striving to be here. And so far they've been playing like one. I want to see it continue.
Hurrywin has started to climb the damage charts here a little bit as well. Definitely show us what he can do. Actually has the 1 level lead over Wolfie there out of the mid lane. So if those abilities are connecting, Isis might not matter in the backline of these fights. Here's a collapse from eUnited on the right. Scream has to leap away. Baskin alone in the backline with the rest of Obey, and he is locked in here. He has to use the ultimate to get out of range, but there's a stun right back in. Baskin survives. Oh, look at the fields of love from Snoopy. You gotta be kidding me. It locks everyone from Obey right in line, and now Snoopy's got a double kill. Saito will fall for the triple. eUnited have turned this one around.
Okay, man, being able to be in the lead, feel confidence, it's a mighty powerful drug here for Obey. And unfortunately, they end up taking a little too much because they get too aggressive into eUnited. They turn that one around almost like it's nothing. And because of the way the respawn timers are, a few minutes, just a few minutes later, Dave, it's going to give eUnited a lot of pressure, at least to return that tier 2 there in mid. 1 minute and 20 seconds left until a Fire Giant respawns. It's still there for Wowie, but they've been able to equalize and normalize a lot of it. It's 3 towers to 2. Gonna pick up a Pyromancer. I mean, eUnited have put themselves not only right back in this, they should take the lead after they get this objective.
They do snag the objective, and Gore, they at least even things up here, and they'll be able to clear out some waves. Very close. Tier 1 tower on the left-hand side of the map. I mean, that's got to be single-digit HP. That definitely would have given them the lead here. What a crumble out of nowhere, though, Gore. If we're taking a step back for a moment, 4 minutes ago, we're talking about Obey Alliance doing a Fire Giant 15 minutes in like 8 seconds or something ridiculous like that. And then it's a Phoenix Siege repelled, and then eUnited a massive fight. Brought to you by Baskin bringing Obey in, and then Snoopy crushing him down. And suddenly we are back to even. What a turn of events we've seen here. There's no way to back it up, but it just seems like that momentum, the intangibles of this game, just feels like it's back with Obey, and their team fight seems to be clicking.
And it just showcased Obey, like, just to meme on them a little bit here, is you can still make a throw-bay play, right? Like, it's not going to, like, the game's not yours if you get that lead. eUnited just showcased that. You can be very far ahead with a Fire Giant buff even 16 minutes into the game, and you're not going to get a Phoenix out of them, and you're not going to be able to win the fights easily.
Whoa.
So you have to be
Got the
careful.
FG. Circle of Protections down on the Fire Giant, and it will detonate. Obey Alliance lock in the objective, but Wowie has to escape from the fight. Baskin won't let him do as much, but Ducky, the other solo laner in the backline, will get rid of Hurrywin, but there's an execute from Baskin for the double kill. He's peeling out now for his backline. Brutalize will only do so much to Ducky here. Watch out for the stun. Once the cooldowns are there, the execute puts him right back in range, and Ducky just trying to sidestep the last bit of damage here. Obey Alliance, they make the gutsy call to go for the FG, and I think that's a 3-kill swing for Baskin out of nowhere. Obey get the Fire Giant. I think a smart call. Wowie and Sino just leave for the Primal Fury, but now eUnited, a chance to confirm some of these non-respawning permanent objectives on Obey's side of the map.
It's the question, what did you get? You got the Fire Giant, but it cost you everything to do so. And again, Wowie keeps the FG, as well as Sino, so maybe they have a little bit of presence there in the jungle that they can push up, the lanes they pushed up, but you lose another big tier 2 tower over there on right. Still single digit maybe health bar on that one in tier 1 and left. So you've got something holding up a structure over there for Obey. But honestly, map state, either team are in a good position to win. I think with the way the last couple of fights have gone, though, eUnited are definitely favored. They're the ones that are finding better picks. Wolfie, unfortunately, the downside, another downside, I should say, of Isis. Wingust, a lot of damage, not a lot of range. You do have to be in the fight, which I think catches him out there in that last one pretty easily. Even though you're able to burst down Hurrywin in the blink of an eye, it felt like. I think there's just too much of Obey that requires you to be in the thralls of eUnited's composition. Fenrir loves that. Snoopy loves that. Baskin loves it. So any way you cut it, I think eUnited like the way Obey have to play here. And unfortunately, unless they clean up a little bit of these engagements, Obey are going to continue on this downward trend.
Look at the way Snoopy has suddenly started to build as well here for eUnited. Takes a brief pause from the bow builds that we so often see to go Deathbringer after his Atalantis bow, and I assume it'll be a fail knot for that extra bit of critical strike chance down the stretch there. He's obviously feeling confident in his ability to burst down some of these big targets, especially after that mid-fight that eUnited had. Obey Alliance still have a couple of the FG buffs, on Wowie most notably, so they'll be able to push back against the tower here. eUnited, Gore, I think maybe smart, despite having really turned this game around, to still play cautious here, because we've really seen, I think, both sides of the coin from both of these teams. We've seen an Obey team throughout this game that will blow you out of the water, and we've seen an eUnited team that can as well. It just seems like whoever gets that more consistent engagement in those fights has been the one winning it.
Really comes down to this. Look, the technical number is 2, but it's 1 tier 2 tower to 1 tier 2 tower that are standing here. And if you get this as Obey, you get yourselves another comfortable lead, right? 4K gold if you're able to pick this without any retaliation from eUnited. And so it just gives you, again, a comfort pillow to really kind of put between you and eUnited. Otherwise, 2,000, 23 minutes in, especially the way this game has been going, doesn't mean anywhere near as much as you would think. And so Obey are in a position of power here, but they only have that Fire Giant buff for 30 more seconds. If they need to get this tower, they need to get Wowie in there now.
Around the backside, Sino has forced Hurrywin through the portal. Scream here to attempt to peel. Sino will beads his way out of the Ragnarok there from Scream. Now it's a dazzling offensive from Ducky in the backline. Both of the carries for eUnited quite low, but Snoopy, he's gotten right back into the fight. He's dropped the Fields of Love now on Sino, and there's a Scarab's Blessing on the jungler as well. Gino will be the sacrificial lamb, the only one to die here. The rest of eUnited has been able to stay alive. Baskin gets stunned, but now it's the Frenzy. Popped for Obey Alliance. They want this Phoenix.
And they get it just like that. Wowie with that Fire Giant buff and a Frenzy is just what he needs. In fact, the Fire Giant wears off going into that. They just had pure damage online for that one. It just feels accelerated. Again, what we're seeing is like a lot of, 15 minutes, I would even say, maybe 16 minutes of clean play from Obey. Then it felt like about let's call it 7 to 8 minutes of not clean play from Obey, and then right back to it. They feel like they're comfortable, in control. I think you could kind of see where like the nerves get rattled, right? You've been winning so well, but you've had this before. You've done this against Space Station. You've done this against other teams in the Pro League, and one bad fight can really rattle your mental in a scenario like that, especially when you factor in the 7-game loss streak in a position of power for Obey. And so I think they just had to kind of recompose themselves. I think that was a few minutes of, okay, wait, guys, calm down. Like, let's pull it back. What's going wrong in these team fights? What do we change? And they changed it appropriately, at least to get that mid-Phoenix. Fire Giants up, and they have an advantage here, Dave, but it is, again, a little difficult. Even with Circle of Protection, you showcased, yes, the Fire Giant will be yours. The last time you lost 3 people for it, how much can they hold on to this time around?
They do it quickly, and the United realize that. So they'll be hovering around this FG pit closely to make sure Obey Alliance can't sneak one away on their side. Wolfie has got another defensive item here after the Spear of Deso and the E-Staff, Mantle of Discord for himself, so plenty of protections on this Isis. A lot of health there as well, Gore, and I suppose it makes some sense. I mean, we've seen what Hurrywind can do if you kind of load that shotgun blast between the ult and the unstable vortex, so maybe he almost has to, just to keep him in the fight a little bit longer.
Still has that Mage's Blessing. It's a little odd just because you have to look for it in that second slot as opposed to that. But with the Desolation, with the Mantle, that's going to save him. Again, last Fire Giant fight, because you're Isis, you have to be a little more in the engagement than some of the other mages that can do it from longer range. That's going to give him a brief moment of respite where, you know, no matter who jumps in on him, how many people are around him, Wolfie will just have nothing to worry about for a second, and then he can reposition or replan. It's maybe going to buy a cooldown on a Spirit Ball, maybe a Silence that can come through and open up the conversation for him to stay alive and return some of the damage back.
Fire Giant started up by Obey Alliance and Circle of Protection to secure it once more, and they are able to do so, but eUnited, they're trying to take the fight here. Baskin is locked down in the back, but look at Snoopy doing big damage numbers to Wolfie, who's in on the front line. Hurrywind has now swapped spots with the Obey Alliance squad. The Soul Gem provides him a little extra time in this fight. He's just getting Sino out of the fray and allowing Snoopy to do this. It's a single kill and now a double for Snoopy on the back end of the fight. Obey Alliance, they got the FG, but it's the double stun from Scream on the jump back in. The Aegis keeps him alive for a little bit longer. Snoopy's got 3, looking for 4. Can it be the delayed Penta around the backside? Sino stuns down 2. Snoopy, he gets all 5. A deicide for eUnited 27 minutes in.
Look, I mean, you had called it a while ago. Attack speed comes through, crit chance comes through. Snoopy pulls through for eUnited on this one. 8-2-4 for the Cupid. You couldn't ask for more out of them. The only downside is they're only left with 2 members. I mean, that's a bloodbath of a team fight. 8 out of 10 people dead. Baskin doesn't have a lot of health. Minions will come through, though, help remove those backdoor protections. So Snoopy should be able to get this one. Return Phoenix for Phoenix. Fire Minions on their Titan. Fire Minions about to go in towards mid, so they do have some defense they need to play. Since Obey's going to respawn, they'll take this win. A pretty big one at that. And go ahead and turn it around in their favor. This is good for eUnited. If Obey keep making plays like this around Fire Giant, eventually you just win, right? I mean, eUnited, they got a tier 2 in right last time they did it. Now they get a Phoenix. The only logical next step is for a Titan after the next Fire Giant.
Gore, I am stressed. This is stressing me out in the best ways possible. eUnited, they continue to do this. This is what now, the 3rd time. We saw, no, that's a lie. We saw 1 of 3 Fire Giants for Obey was somewhat clean. The rest, it almost seems like eUnited are saying, I'm going to, yeah, right, the 15-minute one that eUnited couldn't even respond to. Otherwise, it seems like eUnited has just said, all right, we'll attempt to steal, but we really want to do this. We want to fight. We want to jump in onto Ducky in the back line, and they've been able to do so. It's now the Scarab's Blessing keeping the Amaterasu alive, but it's a double stun onto the front line of eUnited, forcing Scream away. Hurrywind has been locked in and locked down by Sino on the front, and now Wowie doing some damage on his own as well. It's a double kill for the Obey Alliance Hunter. Baskin is going to get sent to the side as well. A big stun, actually, from his own Mantle will delay things, but now Wowie a triple kill to give Obey Alliance some momentum. Gormizer, long death timers. It's only Snoopy on the other end.
I mean, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it. We just saw Snoopy wipe the floor with Obey. So there is at least an example that he can kill everyone on this squad. He's only got 4 people to deal with, but a weakened
20
Phoenix,
seconds.
a Titan exposed, Snoopy by himself with 20 seconds. If he can buy some time and Gino can come up as well as Heroin, then he's got it. But buying time is going to be difficult in a face like this. Minions are coming in alongside him.
Obey Alliance, they want the win. They can feel it
they're
here.
going.
They've been a team that sometimes shies away from moments like this, but they will not now. It's a circle of protection onto the Titans. Snoopy doing his best, but it's not enough. Obey Alliance, in a tug-of-war of a game 1, able to win it in 29 minutes. Gore, I think, you know, the ESPN does those like win rate chart things throughout certain games. I mean, this one up at probably 100% for Obey at one point, 100% for United at another point. What a blast of a way to start off this set.
Look, so you know when like they're measuring like baseball speed, they have like the little mile per hour gun. I guess also that like cops
That's right.
have to measure cars. I want to see that to see because there were a lot of throws that game. I just want to know who was throwing a little faster. Which one was 80 miles an hour? Did anybody hit 90 the way that you would expect in the MLB? I mean, like that last fight from eUnited, there's kind of a big question from me, which is a little bit of why take it then? Like it feels like they wanted to force Obey into a bad position, and unfortunately they just got slaughtered for it.
I suppose literally every single other fight around an objective worked out for you, but it didn't seem like eUnited was fully there just yet. A couple guys kind of trickling in around the backside. That immediate follow-up potentially wasn't quite ready. Obey Alliance, they get all 3 Fire Giants. None of them except for one were all that clean, but that does not matter. They win the fight when it does matter, and Obey Alliance take game number 1. We'll take a quick deep breath here when we come back, game 2. At least in game number 1, Obey were able to find the victory. Will they be able to do that in this set going forward? We can but wait to find out. But at least here in this one, it felt like Obey played better near the beginning to the middle. Little bit of some slip-ups where eUnited were able to get back into it, win a big fight, almost have a chance to end. But Obey were able to come back and close this one out. Aggro still here with me on the desk. And Aggro, I don't know if I want to 100% say that this was Obey, like playing super clean. I think eUnited had some of their own trips and stumbles for sure in this one, but I don't want to take it away from Obey. They played better in this one. I think that's why they ended up winning.
Yeah, here's the order of who played best in this game. It's Snoopy at number 1. It is 5 Obey members, 2 through 6, and then it's the rest of eUnited there after that. I mean, Snoopy did everything he could, it felt like, in order to get this going. Remember, this game was really in Obey Alliance's favor until Snoopy hit a massive Fields of Love in the mid lane underneath where their Tier 1 tower once stood. They turned that around. Then, of course, his delayed multi-pentakill on the Fire Giant a little bit later on where eUnited get right side Phoenix. And then just a bad call, bad execution by eUnited. They try and catch Obey off guard on the Gold Fury. They try and all in using Heroine's Yon Assault. But everyone dogpiling onto Obey, who was all sitting in one of those Isis ultimates, a good circle of protection from Wolfie, ended up being the difference there in that one. It just felt like Scream's selection this time around of this Fenrir did not end up working out. Too much CC proved to be the problem for him. I mean, every time he jumped in, it was an Ama silence or a Kepri abduct or an Isis silence or a Spirit Ball. I mean, that's just too difficult to really effectively frontline and dive in with that Fenrir at any point in this game. Scream had a couple really nice multi-man stuns, and it still just didn't really matter because he was always getting multi-man CC.
Yeah, I mean, even at the times when he was able to find a pull, I mean, I'm thinking of the one Tier 1 tower dive where he kind of brought Sino to Snoopy, unfortunately, and they had the hi-rez to kind of bail them out of it on the tail end. There were too many options, I think, kind of as you covered already, that made this pick not necessarily work for them. The res in particular comes to mind, but also that there weren't as many good targets for those grabs for him. I agree, though, highlighting that Scream had some troubles with this Fenrir is a good kind of starting off point here for where eUnited had some struggles. None of them really, except for Snoopy, were firing on all cylinders. Heroine, I think, can't have a bad Giannis game, but maybe not quite as good as they needed to, and it wasn't enough for them to find the win here in the end. Though, I might back up a little bit. I still think Heroine looks good on Giannis. Not going to hear me saying a bad word about it.
Yeah, that's probably wise. A couple misplays there, I would say, that at the very end got way too close to the vast majority of the enemy team, ended up pretty much getting one shot. Got it big enough on Table Vortex to maybe win the fight, but ultimately not quite enough. So eUnited, I mean, Baskin obviously gets soloed early on, then has a pretty good mid to late game throughout this team fight. Give him something that I think that he can maybe compete with a little bit better in lane. I just really think that it would have been a much better team composition for eUnited if they gave Scream the Achilles and gave Baskin something else. I think that they ultimately have a much better shot if that's the world we live in, but they decide to give that Achilles over to Baskin, and then he misplays it and gets soloed instead of getting the solo kill onto Ducky when he really should have. I think that was a really big swing.
It was, man. That was a chance for Baskin to have a much bigger impact on that game earlier on, and he ended up missing out on that opportunity. And it's not as if, you know, someone was twisting their arm. They had some confidence in that Fenrir pick, and I just don't think that was necessarily the right call in that one either. We'll see if they make those big adjustments, though, in the picks and bans. If you're Obey, though, I think you're feeling really good. You get inbound to come down to the Kepri instead of like the Kuzenbo or the Amir we normally associate with him, and he looks good on that. That's big for Obey going forward. You give Ducky the Ama. He continues to succeed there. I think that Obey get a lot out of finding that victory, as so far, things are looking the same. Obey ban away Habwa set Yamoja, eUnited ban away the Raw Nemesis, but they do take away that Osiris from Sino this time around. Talk about a respect ban as they ban a warrior jungle away.
Need to. He looked too good on it, man. He did like 25k damage to Scream's 11 in that last game. I mean, Sino was just too effective. It really enables Wowie to be a lot more effective whenever Sino has a pick like this. He's building Executioner pretty much every game, really trying to be that team player to allow his team to do as much damage as possible, specifically Ducky and Wowie in that last one. But we've seen Wolfie run the double Hunter in mid. I think that this Osiris has looked too good for him. Don't blame United for wanting to take it away. It does mean that Wowie gets this ROM, but Snoopy still ends up being the one to get the first crack at the ADCs, and after the performance he just had, I think it's pretty obvious why he's taking the Cupid.
Yeah, and I think Wowie's looked pretty good in the Cupid too, so it just kind of makes some sense from both angles, I think, for eUnited. But think about the respect that the jungle mid from Obey has earned. This is why Ducky gets to play the Amaterasu 2 games in a row, and that basically Inbound gets his pick of what support pick he wants to play. eUnited, in the first ban phase, had to spend all their bans on Sino and a little bit on Wolfie to try and limit those two. And it kind of opens the door up for everyone else, I think, to get a little bit more better picks. The ROM falls down to Wowie, obviously the Amada Ducky. Just goes to show how important your jungle mid having pressure really is.
It's been huge for this team, and that's, I think, United's right to identify that that's where Obey has been strong. And if I'm Obey, I'm identifying that as well, and I'm slamming an Erlong Shen right here. Just pick it. I don't know why Obey has been waiting on
There
Sino's
we
pick
go.
so late and getting him Arachne near the bottom of the draft. This is what Obey should be doing. 74% win rate for Erlong Shen. That is absurd. 34 games played. He's won 3/4 of them. That is nuts. Top pick this god. I don't care. It is mind-boggling that so many teams have let it go this deep. I think Obey has already come away with 3 really strong picks. They should be feeling very confident going into the ban phase.
Dude, spot, weakness, the passive, the taunt, the root. Too many of the options. 72 transformations. They're all so good. And Erlong Shed over there for Obey. I think it'll be a great look for Sino. Now a question of what do they pick for Wolfie in the mid lane to work with it. Listen, if you're getting your ISIS in the year 22 respect banned, then I think you're feeling okay. That means that the United can only ban 1 of the 2 that they banned away from him in game 1. He might even be able to come back around to that Poseidon and follow up all that great CEC that Sino should be able to set up for him in that middle lane. Meanwhile, Obey could take a little bit more of an eye towards Baskin. Again, they're banning away the Cerberus, they're banning the Sun Wukong, trying to limit his options. And it will not be the Poseidon, but still some good options there for Wolfie in the mid lane.
You could be looking at Persephone here if you're Wolfie. You get a chance to take
Yeah.
that after 3 mages have been banned and a 4th has been picked. Feel like you got to be pretty happy with that option if that's the direction you want to go.
Ooh.
But Kukulkan is the hover, and it makes sense. Kukulkan and Ra do fairly similar things off CC. They press 4, a big line comes out, and it kills whoever was CC'd right in front of them. If you don't have Ra as an option, I think this Kukulkan pick can work pretty well. I've got no problem with it. I think it's good enough to be played in the right style of comp.
Does a lot of the same things, has that slither to help him move around the map as well, and I think that Zephyr, that first ability, goes a little bit uncounted. It does so much damage every time you get hit by it, and you're so slow afterwards. Great setup for those tornadoes to come out. We'll see if Wolfie can show us how well this can work. Hard to question him after he makes the ISIS work in game 1. But now here's Scream heading back to some comfort. This Bastet, I think likely his signature pick, and the Guan Yu to likely go over to Bastet. I think eUnited has a bit of a better look this time around.
Agreed. They get a little bit more CC out of solo with Guan Yu, which is kind of what you're looking for after you pick something like Bastet, but these are just comfort picks for eUnited. I mean, 4 out of 5 of these, Guan Yu, the one notwithstanding, really are signature picks for each of these players. Odin, I don't love here for inbound. It's just not good enough, I think, it locking down a lot of the members of eUnited. You've got decent cage follow-up from something like Whirlwind, but Giannis can express exit everybody out of the cage, and if that's only if people like Cupid and Guan Yu are stuck in there and in trouble. If they aren't, then you've got Giannis and Bastet who can easily get out. You've got decently high attack speed from the Cupid to get people broken out of that cage. I think Odin is a little bit better than we've given him credit for, but I just don't know if I love it up against the Giannis who can, if you're caging just the Cupid, if that's your game plan as a solo cage the ADC, one portal from Whirlwind will remedy that whole problem.
Could be potentially a difficult pick. I don't know if I like the pick itself, but I do kind of like it for Bobby, right? It is his play style, is to be aggressive, is to get into the thick of things and drop down these cages. It gives him a chance, I think, to be a bit of a shot caller for this squad as well. But I think I share a lot of your same concerns about the pick itself. Just Odin not that strong right now. A lot of good support picks out there. But Warriors are good. We'll see if Bobby can make it work. Game 2 is about to start.
Well, here we go again. Fireworks abound in game number 1. Game 2 has the potential for more of the same here. Gore Miser. Doug still observing for us, of course. Still Hurrywind on the Yana score, and there were, I think, moments of good from Hurrywind, moments of not so good. Sino, I think, had such an easy time finding his way at some points into that back line, forcing Hurrywind to portal away. And it's not like Hurrywind's life is going to get any easier. Sino on an Erlong Shen this time.
Yeah, they're playing with the win rates here, right? I mean, Sino, you're bringing in Erlong Shen, who had almost 75% there, and then Inbound, who's playing the Odin that has 33%. So it's definitely a fight against each other. Sino should still, like you said, have a pretty easy time getting into the backline and causing some damage. Although, as we saw here, Ducky did just get the first damage of the game, therefore wins. So the next few minutes are realistically, it's all just, flavor at this point to how we get there. Either way, Baskin with some return. What's interesting to me is Inbound, hasn't played this Odin this phase, so this is the first time we get to see that. It's also the first Cool Khan game that we get this phase. Not something that we get to see too often. Was very prominent at the beginning of the year even, and he still has a lot of good. Tornado's great. The Spirit of the Nine Winds is great. His Zephyr can be great. It's just realistically, and I think ISIS had this problem as well, it's more difficult to escape. ISIS bringing in silences, banned for the first time all year, I think, that we see in this game. I think it just showcases that Wolfie maybe is more prominent on these lesser-known mages.
Inbound attempting to steal away the red will be unsuccessful in doing so. Very close there, though. eUnited didn't really pay him much mind. Figured they could out-confirm, and they sure did, so early pressure from inbound won't result in much. Wowie was doing just fine alone with Gino and Snoopy anyway. He's got that wave pretty far pushed in. So we know, Gora, I think, pretty handily what an Erlong Shen out of the jungle can do. We've seen it time and time again here over the last few weeks. What do we think of Scream here on this Bastet? She does some big damage numbers, but he seems like one of the only guys that wants to move into this pick.
Not only that, but she works out pretty well for him. Again, he's the only one that picks her up in Heroin. Takes a lot of damage in the process. Glad he doesn't die, so he can instead focus on the Bastet, rightly so. Now she's standing in the forefront. But actually, okay, well, I was looking at Sino. I was like, is he looping around and trying to get the kill behind the tower? Either way, this is something, it's the Scream special, right? The first time that he pulls it out almost every phase, I think, at this point, because I think he did it a lot in phase 1 as well. It's a win for eUnited. It doesn't happen often, but usually it works out well for him. I think here, that is another big determining factor for him, is that Scream's the only one that plays this Bastet, and he plays it incredibly well.
And he has a chance for first blood now. Inbound charging up the stun. Pre-beats from Scream, but Snoopy will get the kill anyway. Now Wowie left alone. Wowie uses his beads as well. There's the pluck from Gino, and that's a death sentence this time around, you'd think. A little sustained. Scream trying to close the gap. The up-down will get it done, and eUnited have 2.5 minutes in.
And it's both duo lane members. You really do not want Odin going down early. I think Rom can fight from the deficit and be happy. He's a great boxer to have in this lane, and even against Cupid, where he might lose some of the pressure, it's not the end of the world for him to have one death. But for your Odin, and that might be a death sentence for the duo lane altogether.
I like this response, though, from Obey. We know Scream is elsewhere. Oh, no! Baskin stays alive with 60 HP, and likely will be the blue buff invade successful, though Baskin, I think, just happy to still be alive and involved here in this lane. Sino was lurking close by. We've seen some ranged pins for the kill, but Baskin will make his way back to base, TP back into lane. Just down one blue buff as Obey will pick that one up.
It's almost like nothing ever happened over here, at least as far as Baskin's concerned. Yeah, he's going to suffer maybe from not having the blue buff, but at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world for him. I think Guan Yu can handle himself pretty well even without it. He's still, again, it's going to hurt. Ducky is going to have a little bit more longevity in the lane and the ability to throw out more poke, but all in all together, I think eUnited's still very much in the driver's seat for this one. About 800 gold, fluctuating from wave to wave that they've got in their favor. And a lot of it is, in my eyes right now for Obey, is dependent on inbound. What he's able to do on this Odin to turn it around. I mean, he's not necessarily talked about as this insane late-game pick that we are used to seeing in maybe some of the others. Like Rom, we can discuss that. Erlong, we can discuss that. Odin, he needs to start getting some stuff done, I think, sooner rather than later. Him paired with like the Kukulkan as well as the Erlong Shen could be an incredibly potent trio. But he hasn't rotated over yet, and neither have we really seen, I guess, Gino rotating over, although he's definitely starting to spend a little bit more time with Heroin than he is with Snoopy. I just want to see inbound a little more active right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unfortunately for him, he and Wowie were both dope on pretty early on into this game by Scream, so that'll put you a little bit behind on your early rotation plans, though now just one level behind from Gino. I agree, though, Gore. I mean, it is going to be interesting, whereas later on, I mean, the cage, not that it changes this game to the next. I mean, it's going to be great, I think, at kind of corralling a few members of eUnited and the potential lack of escape that some of them might have. Ducky there with the dazzling offensive. He had a good game one on this Amaterasu as well. So I don't think the Obey Alliance team fight is anything to scoff at for reasons you brought up, and maybe then some as well. I'm looking to see what Sino is going to do here. Hit the pin onto Hurrywind, but Hurrywind will be able to escape right back to mid. Stay alive, but Gore, there's just this sort of slow building pressure where on different sides of the map, Sino is combining with someone just to steal away some farm, steal away a little pressure, and Scream's going to attempt to do the same here as well on the blue buff. Cat goes out, and Ducky will dash away. Scream will leap in, but it's a dazzling offensive to save the day.
And honestly, I think this is what we need to see. Bastet, she is just much more potent right now. Otherwise, late game, she becomes an ult bot. Wolfie going in, potentially, I think, just trying to help out on the red buff there, but he has no mana, and now he's getting chased down.
I wonder how far eUnited go for this. Ooh. Far enough to get some big damage. Gino detonates Wolfie back to the graveyard. There's a pin and some damage. Hey, there's the Odin Wall for you. Works out this time. Taunt back in onto Gino. There's some body blocks. The tail whip will hit 3, but only because 3 were on top of him. Inbound rejoins the fray, and Gino will not escape this time. Close attempt, though, from Gino to nearly stay alive, and suddenly Obey Alliance have picked up a couple of kills, and it's only Wolfie that goes down in trade.
I have to give credit. Inbound saved me from looking like a fool because I was actually going to talk about how late game, especially around like Fire Giants, Gold Furies, it would be difficult to lock down Yanis. But you don't have to wait for late game. You can just do it now with that cage. They trade ult for ult over there in the duo lane. But being able to find him away from a wall, Baskin not going to be able to escape the crate. Neither will the Yanis, as long as he's away from a wall, or the Sobek, or the Cupid for that matter. A lot that are easily locked down. But again, there's a little of a stipulation. Scream will always be able to jump out. Cupid, late game with attack speed, might just break down the wall. And Guan Yu sometimes might just say, you're locked in this cage with me. I'm not locked in here with you. It could turn it around if Baskin has, his ult available or maybe some just key, crucial abilities up for himself. But it also strips away some of the healing. That slows down Baskin's ability to maybe survive through all of that. Same thing for Snoopy. So there's a lot that Inbound can bring for it. And if he gets more cages like that one in mid, I think this Odin does stay just as potent as it could be late game. It still will fall off in terms of some of the pressure. His damage won't be as prominent. It'll be, the ults, the stuns that come through, a little bit of the shielding, and maybe cleanup kills. But I think we could see this, as Finch had put it on the desk, fit Inbound style pretty well to just slot into Obey and transition into a good late game.
Right, I think it was a good magnifying glass on how the fights in an ideal world will look for Obey Alliance. Scream has the blue buff timer over here. My goodness, that is quick damage from this level 8 Bastet. No chance for anyone to answer. So now a couple blue buffs in a row going the way of Baskin and Scream. And I like this response. I mean, for a moment there, it was Sino kind of stripping away some of the jungle on the backside of the United side of the map. But now Scream able to answer somewhat. We've seen what kind of damage you can do to a blue buff. Not sure you can do the same amount of damage to Ducky underneath his tier 1 tower. Scream will agree. And he'll back himself away. And Gore, we didn't really get to talk about it in game 1. I feel like Thorns and Amaterasu go together so well. And Ducky didn't have it. If I'm remembering correctly, he definitely had the Frenzy, and I think he also paired the Blink there with Yama. He's got Sprint alongside Inbound, who also has Sprint. This Obey Alliance early active selection is pretty aggressive.
Well, it's actually really solid as well, just because not only does it maybe allow them to get aggressive, but a lot of what went wrong for them in the last team fights, at least that I saw, again, Aggro highlighted it best, where he just said Snoopy was the one that played kind of top-notch in that last game, then everybody on Obey, then the rest of eUnited. You get rid of Fields of Love with one sprint. You also escape a lot of those members. Herwind has a slow, Gino has a slow, and Baskin is able to help keep you locked down as well. It just lets you run away, I think, pretty easily, as well as survive in the middle of a team fight. There's going to be more free flow. If you're looking to try and disengage from Scream, that's a good way to get your carries out of there. I think it just fits them comfortably.
There's a good 9 turns blessing in to a Spirit of the 9 wins, but Wolfie has taken more damage than he bargained for. That'll be a kill for Herwind on the other side of the portal. Now Ducky being chased down by a couple members of eUnited, and actually now turning the tables onto Gino as Inbound makes his way over to this side of the map as well. Looks like everyone from eUnited will be able to stay alive. Inbound just running around, spear ready to go. But it won't connect this time, and Wolfie on this Kukul Khan falls again. Gore, this was some of the shortcomings that we saw from this pick in Phase 1. Immobile if you get dove on.
Yeah, and honestly, he's not hitting as hard as he could be. Late game, he still has a lot of power that comes through, primarily in what you're seeing, right? Book of Thoth, first item, you want to stack this up because your passive takes that mana, converts it into power. By the time you hit late game, you've got a free extra, high tier item. I mean, 80 power, 90 power, sometimes even bumping over the hundreds there, that can just look good for you. But as of right now, he just doesn't have that same punch.
Scream trying to counter-punch Sino here. He'll jump right back into the pit, and there's Wolfie with the Zephyr.
What a
the
good
final
cage.
bit of damage. Great cage from Inbound to delay any re-engage. Sino will stay alive. Oh, Hurrywin nearly on the snipe. But Sino stays alive this time. Snoopy's found an opening over there in the duo lane. Wowie still with his snipes, but Snoopy is alone here. Could outlast Wowie through the ultimate if Wowie came crashing back down to earth. This could be a tier 1 tower for Snoopy, who's quietly, Gore, pulled himself a 2-level lead over in the long lane.
Yeah, and honestly, that's already devastating, right? Wowie gets shut down early on, and that was already mentioned that Snoopy should have an advantage from that, but Snoopy, being the player he was last game, with an advantage scares me a little bit more. I don't know if I want him having a 2-level lead, or any sort of lead over there. He's already finished those Devo Gauntlets. Granted, Wowie's got 1 item on him, but that's just because he hasn't backed just yet from Snoopy. They get the Pyromancer though, Dave. That's one thing, again, that ISIS brought, I think, a little more assuredly with Circle of Protection, but that Kukulkan has here is just a giant, huge burst of an ultimate that can guarantee these objectives for you. They don't know that it's down on eUnited, but if they maybe equate it as, you know, being gone here, they could try to get aggressive on a Gold Fury and force Obey into an awkward fight.
Good point there, Gore. Though eUnited are going to continue to slow play things here. Remember, this is sort of how the early game built up in Game 1. Neither team with massive sweeping fights one way or the other, then suddenly things just started to explode primarily around the FG. Obey Alliance not that 2,000-3,000 gold lead, though, that we saw in Game 1. Instead, it's eUnited that have been driving a lot of the early pressure, and I think Scream has started to get involved a lot better here in Game 2 than he did in Game 1. Probably not super thrilled with the way he performed there. But this Bastet already, I mean, 1-1 and 2 affecting 3 out of the 4 kills. This 3 versus 3 from eUnited has been working somewhat well, though Obey have been able to punch back a few times as well.
Like you said, though, this is where things, I think, could get a little more explosive overall. I mean, Obey, especially once Wolfie has his ult back up, could maybe start to get more aggressive. Inbound has already showcased the great part about the cage is not just locking people in, it's locking people out. He has that ability to keep his teammates safe. They could bait an ult or 2 away from eUnited here. It could definitely give them an advantage in pushing in the Gold Fear, but eUnited are going to be the ones that started up.
Spirit of the 9 Winds flies on through. Inbound has only locked in Baskin. A snipe through from Hurrywin, I think, chunks some decent damage there, and Inbound falls to the hands of Gino. Now Gino stunned in by Ducky over on the front line, and Sino trades back 1 for Obey Alliance. Baskin finds his way back onto Wowie, but he's been left alone back into the back of the Fury Pit. He goes, oh, the peel from Hurrywin almost enough, and Ducky will get the kill nonetheless. United never looked convinced, I don't think, Gore, that they wanted to re-engage there, and the frontliners were just sort of left alone.
Yeah, that was like an awkward engage from Obey that led to some sloppy kills, and then an awkward, like you said, kind of like, do we stay, do we not, from eUnited that just ended up resulting in them dropping 1 more there, 2 for 1. And with Baskin going down, it evens up the kills overall, but I think it showcases just why this game is so even. I mean, it's going back and forth, 100 gold for either side just based on who's cleared up the camps first. But now Obey are going to start up this Gold Fear. They just get it. I mean, no one from eUnited there to stop them.
Well, United want to fight, however. It's Inbound stunned through the portal, leaps away, stays alive. The Odin nearly falls prey to the big chain CC that United have. A snipe from Hurrywin, not onto Inbound, but it is in onto Sino. Now Scream has to run away. Spirit of the 9 Winds will send United running. Plenty of portals for disengage. I think Obey Alliance gotta feel like they got away with one there, Gore. Inbound, Sino, both very, very low, but neither of them cleaned up for kills.
eUnited were trying to make it somewhat worthwhile for them, right? Man, we didn't get the fight around the Gold Fear. We'll force a fight afterwards. We have Iannis, we'll make it happen. And unfortunately, it didn't happen there. Beads used by Wolfie. Scream wants to get aggressive. They're taking towers nonetheless, even if they lost the Gold Fury.
Well, it's Beads, and now 9 turns Blessing from Sino that get used. Scream, a bit of a pump fake there. Sticks around just long enough to make Sino think that he has to use his ultimate to disengage for his team. Baskin is going to use Cavalry Charge here. Will Dazzling Offensive stun him down? It sure will, over the wall, but Scream is here. Ducky decides he wants no more to do with it. and he'll run away. Snoopy has been locked into the cage, and Wowie, some free snipes on down, will pick up another one for Obey Alliance. They are hovering near this fire giant, Gore, and Obey Alliance are going to start it out.
Man, I guess 15 minutes and Fire Giant, what goes better hand in hand there for Obey, but no Yanis. Heroin's
eUnited!
United, take that one away!
They get it. It's a 1-for-1 trade on the backside as well. Obey Alliance, they want to make up some ground, and they'll be able to do so with 3 kills onto eUnited, but it is stolen away by eUnited. It could have been so much worse. Obey Alliance, though, they turn the tides a little bit here, but look at this. Baskin, Scream, they can do plenty of damage as well. Scream will roll his way out as Wowie rolls his way right back in. Baskin pops the thorns and dashes right back through. If you can lock down Wowie, that'll be a potential kill. Baskin will use the heal. Inbound's not going to do that much damage, so Baskin wants to get aggressive once more. And now eUnited have found a couple on the back end of losing a couple and stealing the FG.
I mean, alive still, I guess, is the best thing here for Scream. Fire Giant still going for him and Baskin, and they've got a minion wave? I mean, they could put at least some good pressure onto this tier 2. Maybe not enough that they take it, but enough that Obey starts sweating a little bit. That is just an unfortunate sequence of events overall. Obey losing the Fire Giant thanks to Heroin, I believe, overall. And it's that burst damage coming down from the Yen. It's a good position from him, the setup that comes through. Now we're finally starting to see something of a lead built up by one of these teams, but granted, kills are still even, and based on that last fight, I don't know if it's going to really solidify into anything unless they can start clearing out some of these extra towers. But again, they only keep it on 2 members. It's not really the dream to push down towers,
right,
having it on your jungle and solo laner.
Man, Baskin has really started to run away with the player damage numbers, hasn't he? Especially when you compare him directly to Ducky. I mean, they have the same KDA, a 2-level difference for Baskin. A 5,000 gold differential for Baskin, though. I mean, this Guan Yu on the front line has done double, effectively, what Ducky has been able to do. But it's such a weird balance, though, Gore. I say that as far as damage numbers go, but kills, everything considered, Baskin and Ducky have done the same. It's sort of this weird balance and kind of hard to lock down mentally, admittedly.
It's like the difference of, I guess, effective damage versus poke, right? You've got 5,000 damage extra, but no more kills under your belt, so United, maybe that's just coming through as poke, comes through as ult setup and things like that, whereas Ducky has got it directly converted for himself into kills or his team. Get that tier 1. This is a good group from United. I mean, you still have the advantage. Go ahead and press it.
Inbound left alone, plucked in, and it's Baskin doing even more damage, and Inbound will leap his way right back to the rest of his team. Wall down. But so is Barking in the Waters and Fields of Love, and through space and time for United. They spend a lot, but they don't care. They want to fight. Sino around the back. He's going to have a couple backliners on the menu, but Gino's the first to fall nonetheless.
Wow.
Snipes from Wowie gets him a double. Obey Alliance turn the siege around. They defend successfully. Then it doesn't matter how much damage Baskin does. Ducky's going to get the kill at the end of the day anyway. Scream will have to leap away. Sino's in on the chase. Does have the pin here in just a moment. Does not have the blink to catch up. So it looks like Scream will be able to stay alive for the time being. What a turnaround from Obey Alliance.
And Wolfie stayed alive through all of that. I mean, there was a lot of dive to kill this Kukulkan, and they didn't do it. Now he's going to be able to re-engage. He looks like he's going to push down left, stop some of those minions from being precariously close to that tier 2, but also lets them get aggressive over here. I mean, you've got 3 members of Obey ready to try and defend. That's not necessarily a solid defense against Wowie and crew that are being able to knock this tier 2 tower down, and they take the gold lead right back into their own hands.
Well, Hurrywin battling with Ducky. Glad Hurrywin thinks twice about it. Obey Alliance is going to be able to turn around and re-engage. Now Inbound will drop his cage. Baskin in on the back thanks to the teleport. Wowie just being chunked away slightly. Baskin left alone. Look at all the red on his screen. He's not able to get the kill just yet. Now Baskin has to turn around and run away, but the rest of eUnited, they're starting to storm the gates. Scream has got one, Gino's got the other. Baskin buys just enough time for eUnited to fight back in. Gore, I'm not sure what we're fighting over at this point, but we sure are fighting.
I mean, that's the only thing that's up that I could imagine fighting
Fury.
over. They definitely wanted to just keep going. Oni Fury will be up and taken for eUnited here. So there is a benefit at the end of it, right? It's not fighting for the sake of fighting, but I mean, it's not often you get 21 kills in 20 minutes here for these two teams. It's definitely scrappier than what we normally get. And I'll be honest, Dave, I really don't think, even though that should put eUnited, you know, distinctly ahead, again, a comfortable gold lead, they're going to have the Oni waves coming down to help push up these lanes, which 2 of them are already pretty well pushed up for them. It feels too close for comfort. I think if you're eUnited, you've got just a smidge more gold to spend on items. You know, maybe each of you get a tier 1 over your opponent. But other than that, Obey have showcased that they're still in this. If all ults are available, then they're a big threat. They can save their team. On defense, they've showcased a lot of strength. We need to see them get aggressive here. This Fire Giant's a good chance for them to try and go in and show eUnited that they're not out of this.
Long lane wave is pushing against Obey Alliance, so if this does last a while, that'll start to crash in under that tier 2 tower, but eUnited, they want to go now. Inbound will get stunned down through space and time, no good, but it gives Baskin a chance into the back. Inbound left alone with Scream. Ducky now alone with Hurrywind, but look at all the damage pouring into the backline of Obey Alliance. It's Gino and Baskin doing it all, but now Snoopy, he's rejoined the fight. Scream has got another. Hurrywind gets one as well. Everyone from eUnited getting involved, and Baskin gets out alive yet again. Gormizer, these are long death timers, and eUnited are 5 members strong.
They're definitely going to be able to get this Phoenix. They have minions, and it's an Oni wave, but it's only 3 of them. No, they have the melees with them as well. That should have helped strip down this Phoenix. They're going to go for it. I mean, Wolfie has damage, but I don't think it's enough to repel this.
Oh, it's the pluck, and now the Aegis, and Wolfie will get stunned down. Scream rampaging, Titan springs on forth. Yeah, can Inbound get it done? I'm not so sure here, Gormizer. There's plenty of damage rolling on through, but maybe not enough. Onto the Titan just yet. Inbound's got one. Scream continuing to swing away, but Snoopy left untouched. eUnited in 22 minutes. Send us to a game 3.
Yeah, I mean, Scream put him into the dirt 2 minutes into that game. There was 20 minutes of fluff afterward, right? I mean, he was 6-1 and 7. This Bastet really did start things off. That Odin didn't get off to the right foot. Obey had a good couple of fights, but not enough to really make a distinctive difference for it. Unfortunately, the Kukul Khan debut does result also in a loss for him overall. I think they play well still there for Obey, but there's definitely more noticeable slip-ups in Game 2 than there were in Game 1. They'll have to clean that up draft-wise as well going into Game 3.
Yeah, I think United able to capitalize on some of that aggression that they were hoping would work in game number 1. Does tie up the series here in game 2. Tiebreaker right after this.
Well, welcome back to the SPL SMITE fans. Finch here, and we are still in the middle of this set between eUnited and Obey. United able to find a way to get us to a third game. But if we want to talk about things that you all can get, it is the spooky season. So why don't you hop in game and enjoy the Halloween chest that we've got. Here's some info about this chest. The Halloween chest has 2 new skins. That's Dose, new skins, Pumpkin Spice Discordia, as well as Vampirus Amaterasu. Amaterasu's free dub, so maybe grab that skin. Look good while you're grabbing those wins. So I can go ahead and start talking a little bit more, though, about this last set. As I covered aggro, eUnited did manage to win this game, but it was not easy. We have here 2 relatively short games that were relatively back and forth, but how did eUnited come out on top here this time?
It was really easy. Scream was thinking about what he wanted to pick. He went to the Assassin tab. Then he went to the Warrior tab, and everyone went, no, go back to Assassins. He goes back to Assassins, and he locked in on the Bastet. And as soon as he locked that in, felt like it was kind of over for Obey Alliance. An early double kill in the duo lane, which instantly starts snowballing this game. Obviously, it wasn't quite enough because Obey did come back in this one and start to look pretty good, but Heroine's Fire Giant steal with that Giannis was absolutely critical in order to put eUnited back in this game. Basket had a great game on the Squan U. Has not been the Basket I think a lot of people expected coming into the solo lane so far in this phase, but this is the type of game where you start to realize how good this guy can be. Just completely controlled the pace of a lot of team fights, consistently locked down the back line, tons of player damage, good sustain as well. Just a really impressive performance from everybody on eUnited, which was kind of the opposite of what we had in Game 1.
It was. The whole squad played well this time. I do think that this Odin left a bit to be desired, too. That was one of the picks we were a bit worried about coming into this one for Obey, was how this pick was going to work, and I don't know that it always found some good value. I think he did have some pretty good cages throughout this game, but more than not, they weren't getting the impact they were looking for. So I think that's one of the problems that's affecting both of these teams. It seems like they are struggling to channel or connect 2 good drafts. Like maybe they're able to find 1 or 2 things that'll work, but not able to continually get that going. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is that neither one of these teams can consistently find an identity, I think, here, aggro. And they're able to find some really good sparks. We're able to see what they can do, but not chain it together.
Agreed. I mean, you look at what Obey wants to do based on their mid-jungle. It's locked down with heavy CC and set up for an easy Spirit of the 9 wins. And then you look at what Odin brings, and that's not exactly that. I mean, he's got the stun, but it's not the most reliable stun in the whole world. You got the cage, but that's a lot of area where Spirit of the 9 wins doesn't really cover. I think a different selection, either in mid or in support, would have made a big difference here for Obey.
Yeah, as if they cannot keep the idea or the combo going throughout all 5 pieces of the team, right? And then it ends up kind of meaning that there are some areas where there's breakdown in that combo success. But we're making it now to this 3rd game here, right? These 2 teams clearly very evenly matched as we anticipated an important match. They've got to be able to come out ahead. So let's move to those picks and bans then. eUnited in that first pick position this time. And I wonder if there's room, if you're Obey, to ban away this Giannis from Heroine. He wasn't necessarily the saving grace in Game 1, but he still played well. Game 2, played much better, found the Fire Giant steal. I don't know if you can afford to, but maybe you take that away from him.
It's possible. I was going to say, maybe the set is the one that you stop banning because, again, United has not shown that they will pick this pick in the SPL, but Obey seem pretty confident that that's the direction they should continue to go with that ban. I think once you ban that set, you're kind of priced into leaving the Giannis open. I mean, you've got Hebo and Yamoja to worry about. Those have been the 2 bans that they've gone with pretty consistently so far here in this set. I don't see United changing. Okay, I guess I see United changing things with the Yamoja ban. Very surprised at that. I mean, I just don't think that you really needed to now, because if you leave Yamoja open and you ban Rom in that spot, then you're in a really good position to just take Yamoja here. Maybe United feel like Cupid is that important to get for Snoopy, but maybe not even that, because the Ra is the ban that they have been leaving, or the pick they have been banning, and thus are able to grab here. I'm just very surprised that eUnited don't ban Ra, pick Yamoja in this slot. I think that would have been better for them for sure.
Right, of these final 3 picks, right, if you look at it just as the 3 last picks, the Yamoja, the Giannis, and the Ra, is it the Ra, like, the least valuable pick you could have ended up with of those 3? I mean, I think for eUnited at the very least, so I think just looking at that metric, it does seem a bit odd, but it's put them in a spot where they have denied the Ra over to Wolfie, and they can make sure that he doesn't end up getting it, so maybe United are right where they want to be. They have a plan for this Raw this time around. But Obey, I think, are coming out pretty happy with this. I think Wowie prefers the Cupid out of the Hunters right now, and Ducky back on the Ama. I don't see any world where Obey's complaining, especially because they got to ban the Giannis this time.
Exactly, yeah, you don't have to worry about that on the other side. If I'm United, I think I'm going, you're in a tough spot now because you want Sobek, Rom, and Bastet all to be open and unbanned. So which two do you go for, and which one do you leave likely to get banned on the back end? I think this is the right call. I think you go Sobek, Rom, leave the Bastet. If Obey ban it, which they should, then you've got other picks that you can go to, but I really feel like United has kind of put themselves in this position in this game.
I think so too. It seems as though they might have gotten the short end of the stick, and now Erlong Shen back over in Sino's hands. Obey already with a very strong top 3 picks. And listen, eUnited's top 3 picks are good too. Sobek about as good as it gets in the support role realistically, with Yamoja never making it through, and Rom also about as good as it gets in the Hunter role. So I don't think you're missing too much if they can find some good jungle mid synergy to make this Raw work. We've seen Raw rising up in the rankings lately, people just picking him out right. So I don't want to come down too hard on these guys, but it does feel as though if that ban phase had gone a bit differently, they could have come out with a stronger pick in that slot.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you keep the Raw out of Wolfie's hands. It's the #1 pick banned against Obey. 47% of teams take it away, so you know it's something that people find valuable. I'm shocked that Obey don't ban the Bastet. I mean, if I'm in Obey's shoes, the Cerberus is one that I think I do probably respect ban still for Baskin, but I would have been tempted to ban Guan Bastet, because those two picks were so good for eUnited last time around. Now, you don't have to really worry about that. You know, you can go with those selections if they want, but this makes a little bit more sense, I suppose. If Obey was willing to take something like the RDO to try and shut down that Bastet, then this forces Scream's hand, and if he wants to go to it.
Exactly right. Now you have Artio, who's very willing to fight early, being the stance changer. Artio, one of my favorite Guardians to play. But though I do think she can struggle a little bit in Conquest in particular. The dash so easy to interrupt, and then she's kind of left alone. Can be difficult, but as you said, a good deterrent, I think, to some of the more mobile picks that Scream might want to go to with that cripple field. Largely going to be looking at inbound, playing around that ranged route, I'm thinking, as sort of that main engage for them. It's long channeled, but when you land it, it can feel really devastating.
That's when RDO's at her best, when the cripple field is relevant and that long-range route is relevant. That long-range route is so good, and it's so annoying to deal with when you're playing a character like Ra, who can't get away from it. I mean, you just start channeling it on him, and he's going to get rooted or have to beads or something. I think it's a good pick here.
Well, now it's Thor and Achilles coming through and aggro. I mean, I think there's a good chance that Thor might be the one in the solo lane. Where do you think these two picks could potentially be ending up?
I think it should be Thor solo, most likely, but I don't think it will be. I think it'll be Scream on the Thor, and even though he's such an Achilles player, his Thor is also very, very good. It's kind of risky up against what Obey has. I mean, you've already got a cripple field from Cupid and the RDO. Now they're going to add in another one with this Poseidon that's been left open. I think Obey has really come away with a really strong CC-heavy draft that eUnited hasn't really done a great job of drafting around. I mean, Sobek, Ram, Achilles, Thor, all would rather see 0 cripples on the other side as opposed to 3.
Yeah, it could certainly be scary for him. If you're trying to use a Thor hammer, right, and any part of this big cripple field CC chain comes through, you're in trouble. So we'll see what eUnited choose to do. Maybe they want to hide that Thor away, or maybe they want to bring him in and see if he can cause some problems. But inbounds, Odin getting banned here in that second ban phase. I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet, but I think that's a big deal, right? That's why Wolfie gets this Poseidon, because that's what normally has been in that ban slot there for him. And I didn't necessarily think that inbounds Odin was that oppressive, but eUnited do not want to deal with it.
I mean, when you're going with someone like Ra, you really don't want to see Odin, man. It's just another cage that you just can't get out of. I think it makes sense.
So they banned it away so the Raw has an easier etime. Good call there, aggro. eUnited Obey, the all-important Game 3. Dave and Gore, show us what you got.
Well, it is one more game for these two teams. What's happened from Game 1 to Game 2? Gore, does not matter. It all comes down to this one. eUnited Obey, the final time these two teams will face off in this phase of the SPL. Tension's obviously high here in this one. And Gore, both teams looking for some lockdown and some setup out of the jungle. Still in Erlong Shen for Obey Alliance, but Scream's got himself a Thor here in this game. I'm never one to disagree with the Thor pick. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's going to look good for Scream overall. But I mean, I'm a little worried. Again, as they had mentioned on the desk, there's a lot of stuff that will just stop you from moving well on the side of Obey. And so there's a lot of threats there, I think, to Thor, depending on if you hammer in or if you're trying to hammer out, where he might not be able to. It's going to be crucial. As you can see, a lot of beads picked up even there for Scream, because those fields will easily stop him from getting around where they want to.
Well, it's been a lot of mid-game team fighting that's really turned these games one way or another, but really, in the previous game, it's when Scream made his way over to the duo lane. They got a kill not only onto inbound, but onto Wowie as well, and that really set things up for success. Gino splits the uprights with his pluck here. Could have been another potential kill, and Gore, outside of Gino back on the Sobek, we've got another interesting pick locked in for Obey here, and it's the RDO for inbound.
Yeah, that's the one that I think kind of catches everyone off guard. It's not seen a whole lot of play. She hasn't been as successful as you maybe would want to see from some pick, especially when you're relying on this head-to-head matchup, as you had said earlier. But, I mean, more so than just beating them for the last time, this could be the tiebreaker, right? This game right here could be the one that gives your team that edge up. And she's been hit or miss overall. Good cripple field, good stun, decent damage, got a heal. She does bring a lot to the table. But when it's compared to Sobek, right? I mean, RDO has this whole field of things she can do. Sobek plucks and kills you anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter maybe that you have it. She does have some good ways to deal with that, though, and maybe alleviate the pressure Gino could put on this lane. Same thing, I think, for Scream. And so that's something to maybe bear in mind, that Obey are just more difficult to fight into this time, a little more defensive, which goes back to what the waiting room was talking about yesterday, right? Like, are these defensive comps, is it going to pay off here?
Yeah, and we'll take a quick pause before we jump back into things. It's always the question, Gora, is the payoff there one way or another for some of these interesting selections? And I think another one here, absolutely, Wolfie on this Poseidon. And it's not only him. At the SPL level, we've seen the ups and downs of this god in general. I mean, we have seen Krakens that burst teams down, they run away with games, but also potentially susceptible, Gore, to some early pressure from Scream here on this Thor. Once those Anvil of Dawns start to swing up, might have to play a little extra cautious. We're going to sort some things out on our end. Quick break, and when we come back, Game 3 resumes. Appreciate the patience, everybody. Right back into the game we go, and we're rejoining back over in the duo lane, Gore, where a lot of the pressure between Game 1 and Game 2 had started off. You've already seen Gino attempt some of his aggressive plays, and notably, Gore, I'm looking at the pivot away from inbound as well. If I'm just kind of scanning my eye from one support over to the other, I believe it was sprint both games in a row to start off for inbound. Remember, Ducky had sprint in the previous game as well. Now it's really a little bit maybe more defensive from both of them. Maybe a little bit more aware of some of the setup that eUnited have, and also notably Cupid isn't around anymore for eUnited.
Yeah, I mean, being able to avoid a lot of the slow fields that existed last game, and now you don't necessarily need it as much overall. Although, I will say, I don't know what trade I would take, having to buy Sprint to deal with Snoopy's Cupid, or having to deal with Snoopy's ROM just in general. That's not an easy task, all in all. And I think that's something that Wowie is going to have to put up with. But I will say this, Cupid has been very kind to Obey historically, even though Wowie has done maybe not so great win-loss on it. Performance-wise, he has always been able to do historically well with it. And that was kind of a discussion I think we've had in the past where, you know, Wowie is one of those players that will not lose you a game, but he can win you a game if, or he cannot win you a game depending on this. Even if he goes insanely well, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done by the rest of the squad to make sure they, even if he goes, you know, let's say 10-2, someone else is winning this factor for them, for Obey.
Oh, Gore, in the meantime, we get our first small glimpse of what both of the mid laners can do. Just a couple tiers of boots, tier 1 item, and Mage's Blessing online. Both of the junglers chunked to about half HP. Sino just sort of walked in. Scream attempted for a small gank over there into mid. Just shy of that level 5 mark. Now Scream makes his way over. So, Gore, the onus has maybe been on Scream in a lot of these games based on the picks that he's had. But just by reaching level 5 on Thor, now's the time, right? It's got to be for you to start to make an impact here across the map.
At least in burning some beads, right? I mean, there's 4 pairs of beads on the side of Obey. You gotta get rid of some of those, even if it costs you your ult. I think that's a big win because Scream still has the wall follow-up, and there's still a lot of damage that can come through. I think once Heroine's ult recharges here, that's going to be a pretty easy out for them. Good wombo combo combination of Smite that can come through. And even with beads, I think there's a lot of, well, just capability for eUnited to find that damage combo, find a lot of lockdown to cause trouble for Obey altogether. I mean, Wolfie, even though he can maybe retaliate with a Kraken once his beads are gone, he doesn't necessarily have anything that gets him significantly far out of a fight except for a move speed stim that even still isn't going to be enough early on to really feel the difference. So there's a lot of ability, I think, to really just sit on this mid laner and cause Wolfie to have a bad game, much like they did on the Kukul Khan last game.
We saw a lot of this score as well in the last game. Some setup now onto Hurrywind. The healing, I think, does just enough to keep him alive. Wolfie on the chase, Wolfie on the kill. Hurrywind just eats way too much damage there, and it's only Wolfie who has to burn his ult. Scream. We've used the Anvil of Dawn as well, but didn't end up finding anyone for it. Now Snoopy realizes what it's like to be caught in a Fields of Love. Will have to use his beads to stay alive, but Hurrywind, the immobile Ra, falls for first blood.
Now, Dave, I do understand we have the glory of seeing literally everything. I mean, the god's eye view from looking down, I guess,
And it's
even
great.
onto the gods themselves, right? Scream, when he used his ult, was up, I believe, near the XP camps and then dived with it down onto the red buff. So he was able to find something in there, you know, an invade for a steal on a buff. But you lose your own red buff at that, and there's 3 people that are just sitting there waiting for Heroine. I think it's just an unfortunate scenario. He was in a position where if Wolfie's under that tier 1 or just around it, even where he is now, he's in danger, and they're able to lock him down and find a kill. It's just, again, so unfortunate timing, I think, for eUnited that Obey get aggressive when they do, and showcasing that Obey aren't, even though this team feels maybe a little more defensive, they're not locked under these towers just waiting for eUnited to make the plays and for them to try and counter. They are willing to take the fight to eUnited, and if eUnited aren't prepared for it, well, that Kraken comes through and does just enough damage to get the job done.
It was an early 3 versus 3 grouping, or 3v3, I suppose, grouping. It wasn't really a 3 versus 3 fight. It's blue buff invade on one side of the map for eUnited. Obey Alliance answer in kind with a red buff invade of their own. Now Scream, no Anvil of Dawn, but does have the ability to gap close. It's the blue buff respawning once again, which also means the red buff will be respawning for United once again, and it looks like both teams happy just to trade things out. Doesn't look like Scream actually stuck around and locked down that blue buff. I don't see the little green arrow there, so maybe just a little extra cautious really from both sides for the time being. Not going for the attempted invade once again.
And honestly, it's just because, again, so much matters on this game. Already, First Blood has been taken down. And so you have to be a little worried. I think if you're Obey here, you get First Blood. You don't want to slip up, but you don't want to overstep. I mean, that's what you did there in game number 1, where you had a good solid lead, and then you make a couple of missteps, some fumbles in the middle, and then finally you pull it back into your favor. I think here, what we're going to be looking at is just both of these teams playing a little more cautiously, slowly, and thus Scream can go up in the air like he has
Look
now.
at this. Look at this. Into the mid lane. Could be Scream. Stuns down. Onto Inbound, and Gino will detonate Wolfie for the first kill of the fight. Inbound trying to work his way away, receiving a little bit of healing, and that's the combo we hope to see. Scream rooted down just for a moment, but it won't matter, and he spins to win, gets the kill onto Inbound at the end of it, and what a pluck from Gino to get Scream out alive for sure. A 2-kill swing for United.
Yeah, Wolfie is not going to get out of that on a good day. I mean, there's his bead's still up, so maybe he would have had the ability to try and pull out there. But otherwise, again, Poseidon doesn't have a leap, doesn't have a jump of any sort, nothing to get out of a fight when he's locked down like that. And he ate a Ra ult pre-Thor ult. I mean, I was talking earlier about the combo of the two. I wasn't thinking it would go in that order. I was thinking, yeah, Scream locks him down, Heroine hits the ult, and then they just have that damage. Otherwise, flipping the case for us, I think just showcasing what exactly Obey are going to have to suffer against, right? You
Right.
can bring the fight to them, but if that Kraken isn't perfectly on the mark, and honestly, even early game, it's not going to have enough damage, then there's just enough of a shuffle there between the mid laners and junglers that early game advantage will shift always over towards the United, and Wolfie is going to have to be careful for it.
Yeah, one more small pause before we jump right back into game number 3. That's it, right? I mean, that is what you hope for. That's textbook from eUnited as far as set up and then knock down throughout the rest of that fight. There was a small kind of lagging response from Obey Alliance around the back end, but ultimately not able to turn around some of those kills. Quick look at the scoreboard, though, Gore. The team with the early lead has won up to this point. Obey Alliance, a small struggle to get there in game 1. But now eUnited, they're slowly starting to work their way there. We're 9 minutes into the game, 1 kill separating these two teams. But about 2,000 gold is the difference already.
And I was paused there for a little bit, but you had to notice that eUnited, again, with the way things have kind of come up in their favor, they are able to spin this gold lead a little bit further. You know, maybe it's a mana potion, right, for Herowind. But right now, especially if he finishes this Doom Orb, that's a lot of power that's going to come through. He's already hitting you so ridiculously hard. I think one more fight, maybe a big objective like that in favor of eUnited, would seal the deal, at least for Herowind to keep doing it. Gold Fury going the other way, Dave. That, well, will nullify all of the most advantages, at least, that we've talked about in the last little bit. Team fights can still definitely go the way of United.
Oh, the stun from Scream won't be there on the inbound. The searing pain from Hurrywin sure will. But just tanky enough, and inbound will stay alive. Just a moment ago, Gold Fury over to Obey Alliance. Hurrywin was kind of rotating over. I think inbound doing a good job of dividing Hurrywin on his attempt to rotate in. Could have been a snipe for Kraken sort of trade there, a bit of a toss-up in moments like that. But won't be, and Obey Alliance will shrink that gold lead by about half. So good there for Obey for sure. Gore, I was about to shine some light onto Snoopy and the fact that he's gone Bloodforged, but I think it's Vote that we talked to. And he did this once, and he literally just said, I had enough gold for Bloodforged, so I bought it. Maybe that's literally what Snoopy's looking at here. I mean, provides you sustain, some damage. The extra shield is maybe the biggest differentiator. Scream differentiating in the mid lane. Oh, the Kraken! Look at the peel from Obey. Lurking in the waters is Gino. Is inbound going to be able to get the kill there? He won't. It's the setup from eUnited, but this time it's Obey Alliance that get the kill for themselves.
And that's just how you have to do it, right? Wolfie, you know, we have 2 examples of this now. Once where that Kraken is just off the mark and doesn't get anything really in return, and then once where it is smack dab in the middle of where Scream lands, and unfortunately for Scream, that means he goes down. And now Obey are pulling back these objectives, still behind in gold, even if it's ever so slightly. It's still a deficit for them, but they're starting to pull a little bit back in their favor in terms of these objectives. But you have to be a little worried, right? I think Rod does a lot of damage in return. Whenever Hurrywin is in the neighborhood, you have to be a little worried about it. Same thing for Scream. And you had highlighted it, Snoopy's gone that Bloodforge. And while maybe there is a little bit of, I just have the gold for it, so I'll buy it. It's a good power spike. And he's already playing the best boxer in the game when it comes to the Hunter
Right,
1v1.
good point.
So I think for Wowie, that just means that we're not going to be talking too much positively about him over there in the duo lane unless he finds some insane 1v1 where he's able to turn it around in his favor.
And look, I mean, Snoopy, the man's been playing, I think, lights out here over the last few weeks.
Yes.
Despite some of the woes that eUnited has had, I think Snoopy has been playing pretty consistently well for this squad. A guy who in a lot of team fights will at least find 1 kill. I imagine, whether it's just I had money for it or not, we see that passive on the Bloodforge, the extra shielding on a kill, get used successfully a few times here in this game. I mean, I'm putting my money on Snoopy being heavily involved here in Game 3 as he has been up to this point. There's a double stun on the back end from inbound. A snipe again from Hurrywin connects, but again, inbound will stay alive. Scream, not happy with that though. He jumps down, but it's right into the waiting arms of Sino. The 9 turns Blessing, turns Scream right back into the damage, and Wolfie drops the Whirlpool, drops the Kraken, drops Scream. Obey Alliance again have turned around the dive. Can Hurrywin get one? No, it's Snoopy instead. who now finds one for himself, maybe a second around to the corner. Inbound quick enough, turns around to get the minions, and Uriwin will get the kill. He probably would have fallen thanks to the range nonetheless. This one keeps going as Ducky has suddenly rotated over. Baskin's got the kill, but he's also died. The United have 3, Obey Alliance have 2, and that's the bottom line in this one.
And this goes back to what you had said. You know, fighting for the sake of fighting on that one. I think Sino is, like you had highlighted, maybe not so happy that they saw inbound go out. But that's a lot of investment. I mean, ultimately they get Wolfie and Wowie as well, but specifically into inbound, I mean, there felt like a lot of turnaround and maybe just pure hatred to try and lock down this Ardia. They do not want this pick to get off its legs. I think that late game healing as well, even though it's maybe not as much as you'll see out of the Raw on the other side, it's enough that you have to be a little worried about it. And so they're trying to shut this one down as fast and as much as possible. Same thing for Wolfie, but that one might just be ease of access. If you're looking at anyone on that team that's easy to kill, those two are the most immobile. Inbound still has a way to dash out, but it's not the fastest one in the game. So I think good for eUnited. Locking them down, but ultimately, I mean, even though they come out with a kill lead, you can see like the gold fluctuating between this. Obey has closed that gap significantly from what that 2000 was earlier when we came back from the break, and now Oni Fury spawning up. Last time Obey got this for free. Herwin does his ult this time so he can contest it, but that Kraken, it's a lifesaver when it comes to these objectives. It's 3 games in a row that Wolfie has played something that is just solid at securing those for the team.
Goran, you know, I wonder if you sort of take a zoom out moment and just really look at both teams. I wonder how much of this is potentially frustrating for eUnited, because they have been the ones, I'd argue, that have been doing all of the engaging, a lot of it thanks to Scream, a lot of the long-range sniping, and Obey Alliance, I think, have just done a better job of fighting back and away, baiting them in, not unlike this score. They're going to lurk Baskin around to the corner, and then a Kraken will eat him up a bunch of damage. It's a 9 turns blessing this time from Sino, and the Kraken lurking far behind by the red buff. But United is going to try to find another re-engagement. This time the wall won't get the stun. Scream will have to back away. Obey Alliance do enough here to slow down the engage for the time being.
Well, it goes back to what you had mentioned earlier, and we might see here the aggression from eUnited. It's getting turned on its head.
Oh, down comes Scream, but he hasn't connected, I don't think, with what he wanted. Hurrywin does not either. There's a double Kraken, a double stun, though, from Scream. Gets mitigated. It's a double kill from Baskin nonetheless. He'll ult his way right back towards the Fury. eUnited this time. They're fighting over something, and it's the Oni Fury.
And this is a good one to get. 15 minutes in. Granted, this is about the time Obey should start going for a Fire Giant, right? They only have 15 seconds left if they want to keep that one going for themselves. But this is perfect. I mean, you already got a pretty significant lead in all of your lanes. A tower gone over there and right, halfway done through mid and left. And the waves are pushed up there already. So you get even more pressure from these Oni minions that are going to spawn with this next one. I think just causing more and more stress for Obey Alliance. Hey, they sneak back a Pyromancer, so there's something to keep them going. But as long as you can continue knocking down at least tier 1s right now, that's going to be a solid early lead for eUnited here at 16 minutes in. Then they can start converting that into the objectives, because look where all the kills are right now for Obey. Of the 4, 3 of them are on Wolfie, as well as 3 of the deaths on Wolfie. He's pretty easy to solidify. It's all dependent on whether or not that Kraken turns things around.
And it seems like the Kraken has been hitting 2 people almost every single time. It's got to be a quick reaction thing where Wolfie kind of gets this sense that he's about to get dove on, and if you pre-fire that Kraken, it'll kind of slow down some of the engage from eUnited, and I think Wolfie has done a decent job of that. I mean, 3 kills for 3 deaths, I think, kind of tells that story. He tends to die, but he takes one with him on the back end of things, so it's about not getting dove on versus diving cleanly, I think, around the bend here for both of these teams. But eUnited's going to be in a little bit more of a comfortable spot in doing so. Quick look at the level differential. Everyone in this game outside of Geno has at least a 1-level lead. Baskin has quietly pulled way ahead of Ducky, a 2-level lead for this Achilles, 3-1 and 2. Baskin has been dominant here and much more impactful on the rotations out. Look out for Scream. Back behind the FG pit. Inbound has taken half of his HP. And now eats a stun. And now eats an execute as Baskin gets the kill. It's going to be a double. Baskin keeps doing it. It's going to re-engage on the FG. What a man move there with the execute from the Achilles. Obey Alliance, I don't think they have much they can say about it, Gore.
I mean, yeah, you're nowhere nearby. You have or don't have the Kraken at all. And well, Sino, he's on the other side of the world, so you're not going to be able to do anything on this one. I'm going to say, you know, as much as we've been talking about Snoopy, because he's had a good game as well, 1-0-4, he's been a part of this. Baskin, you know, from game 1 to games 2 and 3, was night and day. I mean, he has been a huge portion of the last game, and pretty much the main portion of this game. I mean, he's part of 7 of the 9 kills. He's been finding the executes, the stuns, and a lot of these moments where it feels like Obey should be able to turn at least something around in the fight. He is the brick wall they run into that stops them from getting anything done. Now they're going to clean up all these towers, at least that tier 2 over there. They should be able to get a tier 2 in mid, maybe even the last one in left unless they want to pressure a Phoenix. And that's going to give them such a huge gold lead, finally, for someone here on eUnited that will really make it difficult for Obey, who, again, already losing fights on the back end. I think they have a good Phoenix defense comp, but it's going to take a lot of work to get it done. And if Baskin keeps playing the way he does, they're going to have their work cut out.
Obey Alliance just aren't here. It's Wolfie now being walked at by Baskin, and we've seen how that has worked out a few times throughout this game. A mid-lane Phoenix being taken by eUnited, a 9 turns blessing. But it's the ultimate from Baskin to disengage. A decent Fields of Love, and now a frenzy pop from Ducky. It might be Baskin falling yet again, but somehow he stays alive! And Ducky has eaten more damage than he bargained for. One more snipe from Snoopy. Hit it, baby! Down he goes. Kill not there, but Scream on the re-engage. eUnited working their way back into the Obey base. Snoopy gets his kill. Nonetheless, eUnited, Gore, they got 5 members with the FG. Obey Alliance, 3. They're back in defending. eUnited smell blood in the water. They want to end this game right here, right now. The minions working their way into the Titan room. But eUnited are playing this one slow. They want to heal up first.
They've got 2 minutes left with this Fire Giant, though. I mean, there's almost no pressure on them
do it.
to fall back. They've got the sustain. Dave, they're going back in.
They're into the Titan room. Titan is at half HP. Sino is as well. Snoopy uses the Aegis, keeps himself alive. Titan aggroed onto Gino at the moment. Now Ducky has to juggle his own aggro. Scream is chased down. Sino off to the left. eUnited working their way in. Do they have enough damage to do it? I think they might, Gore. There's some stuns on the back line, but the damage from eUnited way too much. In 20 minutes, eUnited take game 3.
Yeah, that one felt like they knew what they were doing coming into it, and they just locked up Obey. Again, it feels like from minute 1 there was a lot of back and forth from them, but except for some good Krakens from Wolfie, there wasn't really a lot that came up in favor of Obey. I guess they got a Gold Fury here or there that they were able to pull in their favor, but not a lot. I think that really helped convince anyone they were going to win team fights. Overall, I think post-game stats, like things to look at Heroine's damage and then look at what Baskin was able to do, because I think his KDA, as well as the raw damage that came through, both RA and RAW that came through for eUnited there, was just enough to overwhelm them. And again, Baskin, at least for game 3, was easily MVP.
This one, Corey, it's so weird. It felt close, like, through the first 10 minutes of each of these games, and then almost not throughout the last 10, where one team just started to run away with things, and it was just one siege for a while there. We were seeing teams have trouble ending games. Not today. Really one push, all that was required in a couple of these to finish things off. eUnited in this very important matchup will break their loss streak, take the set 2-1 over Obey. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, the guys on the desk will break down the set.
We get some moments of brilliance, and I mean some moments of brilliance from Obey, but they cannot chain them together. And in the end, eUnited come out the winners here 2-1. And what a last game that was. eUnited kind of just stacking it up, winning in a hurry there towards the tail end. A 20-minute game or so to close that one out, almost unheard of. But it is indeed eUnited your winners 2-1 here at the end. And Aggro, if you had something, I guess, to say here to Obey, you know, about finding a way to chain these good moments together, I mean, what would it be? Do you have a diagnosis for this? How are they struggling to completely get the whole package?
Unfortunately, I'm still working on the doctorate here. I don't have a true diagnosis for this eUnited or for this Obey team rather, but I think that they've got to find a way to get themselves in positions where they are going to be a little bit more comfortable. For whatever reason, Sino, who really was the initiator of Erlong this year, was the one showing off on it at the very beginning of the phase. Yeah. Has not looked comfortable on it these last 2 games. He was just on a different page than the other members of Obey in this one, and when that happens, I just don't think Obey really can stand up to anybody, because that is such a big part of their success, is them all working on the same page together following Sino's leadership. But you got to give credit to eUnited. I thought that they made it very hard for Obey to be on the same page in this game. Gino was really, really strong on this. Sobek, but just in general, the mid 3v3 for eUnited was strong enough, and then Baskin just rotated out of solo and was way more impactful than what Ducky was able to do in this game. That's back-to-back games here where Baskin did the stuff that I expect Baskin to be doing, and if that's the biggest change for eUnited, if that's going to be a lasting thing for them, then they're going to be in a really contentious spot come placements time. I mean, if Baskin can return back to form, I think eUnited's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think Baskin played well in this one. Whirlwind as well was hitting all these snipes, some on the tail end of engagement, on members chasing out right there in the middle of it. I was a bit worried about this Raw at the top of that draft order with the way those bans went, but I think Whirlwind assuaged those fears for me quite well. This United team, when they're playing the way that they are, as you sort of said, they're going to be a really hard team to beat. And speaking of United, after winning the game, of course, they'll be the one standing by for the post-game interview.
That's right, and it's Scream with me, fresh off a 2-1 win over Obey. Scream, you know, if I'm going to ask kind of a sad question, it's going to start at the beginning. You know, game 1, it's very back and forth between you guys and Obey here in this one. Do you guys as a team feel like maybe you could have ended this 1-2? Do you think game 1 might have slipped away from you and you could have gotten the 2-0?
Yeah, I think they came in with a game plan that we didn't really expect. Like, they played a really heavy objective burn, and in specific, the ISIS last pick was kind of, I mean, well, okay, when I pick Fenrir and they haven't picked their mid laner yet, it's kind of risky, but they last pick ISIS, which is, like, really terrible for me, and I got behind early game as well, so it was just kind of, like, a culmination of, like, a lot of bad things that happened, but we like, team fought back into the game, and we probably could have won, but it was just kind of a tragic game from the get-go, honestly.
Well, that's the sad. The good is that you guys win games 2 and 3 and get the win here regardless of what happens there in game 1. You specifically, 3 different picks here in this one. Fenrir, as you pointed out, Bastet, Thor as well. You've really been playing a variety of picks over the last few sets. Do you think jungle's in a pretty flexible spot at the moment where a good variety of picks can work?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say I play a relatively different god pool than most other people do.
Definitely.
But I think you can kind of play whatever you want. Like, you see Sino, he's playing like these like auto attackers, and he's going stone cutting executioner. There's other people like, I don't know. There's a few other picks, like Fred plays a little bit of different things that we'll have to deal with tomorrow. And I don't know. I just think it's pretty flexible. Like, there are some characters that are just like not very great, but I think like a good majority of the cast is like pretty fun, and you can kind of play whatever you want.
Definitely, you guys can kind of game plan around those types of picks as well. Talk to me a little bit about Baskin as well. I mean, you guys really put him on the Cerberus early on. He started to come into his own here. His Achilles there in Game 3 was massive. How pivotal do you think Baskin has been, specifically in this set, to getting you guys that win?
For this set, I think he played great. I think him and Gino were like really going off in the front line. And it allowed us to get these wins. But Baskin overall, he's been great. he brings a lot to practice every day. He wants us to practice what he thinks is good, and usually his general, like he has a good idea of what is good, and he just brings kind of like consistency to our practice where we didn't really have that before. So.
Sure. Well, good looks for you guys here today, Scream. As you mentioned, up against PK in a set tomorrow. 3 sets left for eUnited here in Phase 2 of the SPL. Best of luck in all 3 of those. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen at home, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we got another set.
got it so bad. I got it bad for you. You give me good love. You like a dream come true. They say it won't last. They say you're wild and free. I know you never were a one-man woman. I was hoping you would give that all up for me. I get so confused. I love it when it's only me and you, doing all the things we know we shouldn't do. This is way too good, it can't be true. So tell me what your game is, girl. When you touch me, feel so good, I
You have yet to see the meaning of cruel.
Let the heavens rage!